Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June Advisory Commission on Special Education. We will begin with the roll call vote, or roll call of commissioners.
Commissioner Toston.
Present.
Commissioner Graff. Commissioner Estes. Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Liu. Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Mashad.
Present.
Commissioner Notch.
Present.
Commissioner Oyakawa.
Here.
Commissioner Ruiz.
Present.
Commissioner Snipes.
Present.
Commissioner Sorter.
Present.
Commissioner Topelian.
Present.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Present.
Student Commissioner Ding. Student Commissioner Tung Zaksal.
Present.
Thank you very much. I'd ask all to stand and join me in the salute of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will begin with a review of the agenda for day one, and there have been some adjustments to the agenda. And just share this disclaimer. We'll be doing everything live in real time today, and so there'll be some things that'll potentially adjust as we gain more information. We will begin our agenda with item one, the recognition of a recipient of the Grazer Outstanding Achievement in Learning Award. We're happy to have a presentation from the San Mateo Union High School District related to the Bayquest Scholars. Our second agenda item is another recipient of the Grazer Outstanding Achievement in Learning Award, a program from the Orange County Department of Education called the Connections Program. We will adjourn for lunch at 11:45. Item three, we will have general public comment. Item four, we will hear from the Imperial County Special Education Local Plan area, specifically relating to the project Multilingual Students with Exceptional Needs, or the MuSE project. Item five, we will have the annual election of officers. Item six, previously was the non-public schools study update. Because of conditions outside of everyone's control, that presentation will not happen today. And so item six will now be the committee study session, ACSE Agenda Building, Operation and Planning Committee. We will move the general public comment up to item 7 and adjourn after the general public comment this afternoon. So that completes our review of the agenda for the day. If I could ask our teammates from CDE to please share the slide for public comment. There are multiple ways to make public comment for items on the agenda and to provide general public comment for those individuals who are participating and observing the meeting virtually. You can dial in at the dial-up number there, and the team from CDE will acknowledge all the callers. The public comment for callers online and in the room is limited to 1 minute. We ask for callers with a professional affiliation to please state your affiliation. Those who don't wish to make known an affiliation, that is fine as well. We ask you to please limit all comments to 1 minute, and that will be enforced by our teammates at CDE in terms of the time limitations. Members of the public who are attending the meeting, we will make a call and ask you to line up at the microphone in the back for, again, 1 minute public comment. Please identifying any affiliations that you wish to share, and limiting your comments to 1 minute. Additionally, you may email in public comments to ACSE@cde.ca.gov. Thank you. We will not be having a swearing-in this morning. We'll be adjusting the swearing-in to another agenda and moving into communications and announcements. We recognize it is a very busy time of year between graduation responsibilities at pretty much every high school, middle school, and kindergarten classroom across the state, as well as life commitments that commissioners and educators have made to family members. And today we have a number of commissioners who regretfully aren't able to join us because of some commitments that needed to take priority. And so with that being the case over the course of 2 days, I want to make an announcement. Tomorrow's meeting will be a virtual meeting. We will not be meeting as commissioners here at CDE. The teammates from CDE will make sure we all have the link to participate in the meeting, but we'll be participating virtually tomorrow and not making any action items tomorrow. So that's a change to tomorrow's agenda. Additionally, when we get into meeting planning, this is something that we may want to consider as commissioners in terms of our meeting structure, reviewing what our core responsibilities are, how we can best achieve those efficiently, and make sure that we are being good public stewards of the resources that are required to host public meetings, and recognizing just the reality of our world right now in terms of many of us participating in the meeting as members of the public and even commissioners. I'm sure you have an invite for another meeting to participate in virtually between lunch or during a break. And so we want to honor all of the commitments, as well as the parents who are commissioners who are coordinating services and care for young people as well. And so that'll be part of our conversation during operations and planning. With that, we are already ahead of schedule, which is awesome. We would like to move into item 1 and recognizing the significance of the 2 Gold Award recipients this year. These are the last Gold Awards that we will be providing through ACSE as of this moment. And so we wanted to recognize the contribution from the Grazer family many years ago and their ongoing and continued support of improved educational outcomes and their partnership with ACSE over the years. With that, I want to recognize and invite to the podium Dr. Holly Wade from the San Mateo Union High School District, who is going to share with us an overview of the Bayquest Scholars Program and the impact that they're making in their community. Dr. Wade, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the Grazer family for their recognition and certainly recognizing the work that we have done. I wanted to pause for a second. My scholars are not here because they're at the Giants game. Turns out y'all are not as exciting at the Giants game, so I apologize. But I am, I think, speaking on their behalf. So the driver for our Bayquest Scholars Program at College of San Mateo was really some of the research that we know. 3% of our students with disabilities do not make a living wage in California. They do not transition from their post-secondary programs into meaningful work, meaningful post-secondary options. So we know that most of our students with disabilities do end up leaving our high school programs or school district programs and live below the poverty line. This has to change. So this particular program was started to address some of these challenges for our students as they transition to adulthood. We are supporting the students to live, work, play, learn, and I always add love. I get all choked up. I always add love because we want our students to have meaningful partnerships and meaningful relationships in their lives. So we can do better. I know we can do better. So students with disabilities are driving this movement. There are many student organizations across the state of California and the country realizing that they want more options. They want more integrated post-secondary options. They want access to universities and colleges after they leave the school district. And I'm happy to report that many of our local universities, Cal State universities, are beginning programs to support students with disabilities. There have been some for quite some time. There are programs and services where housing, a very typical college experience, is happening. So we'd love to see more of that, and there are programs across the country that are beginning to help access to students for post-secondary college experiences. By promoting this education at College of San Mateo, we are giving students access to their age peers. So they are going to school, they are leaving their post-secondary programs that we currently offer in San Mateo Union to attend college campuses, to be on campus. I don't know if you've ever been to College of San Mateo, just a quick shout out. It is a gorgeous campus. Many of our community colleges are beautiful settings, and this is a beautiful campus, so I encourage you to visit. And we are letting the students lead what they want to do. We're letting them pick the classes they want to pick. We're letting them be the drivers in what work they want to do and what training they need. We are supporting them to be independent in the community, and we're very excited about the progress that we've made. In the proposal or the application, I had testimonial from a parent who has seen her young son blossom while he's been at CSM this year, and I have in the PowerPoint a testimonial from a faculty member who welcomed the students into his class this year. So the goals, I've talked a little bit about that. They are academic in nature. Students are taking classes. They're exploring opportunities on the campus. We are doing career development. Students are pursuing employment opportunities of their choice. There's social opportunities on campus. Students are joining clubs on campus. They're meeting their peers. They're becoming active members within the setting. And a lot of that work, the students are in their last or second to last year in our post-secondary program. So a lot of that is transition planning for their future. And we have a lot of in-family engagement in this program, a lot of support, and kind of that fine line between your student is now an adult and you're still the parent, but navigating that student voice and letting that student advocacy come through while you balance the need for that ongoing parent support. Here's a student in a dance class, and this is just an example of some of the opportunities the students had. These are all classes they chose. Not sure if the student ever took a dance class before, but he kind of rocked it and he loved it and he's going to do it again. And embedded in this line in the upper slide is the staff person who's supporting the student in the class, completely embedded in the classroom, and you cannot tell, shoes off, dancing. He loved it. And I actually think he took the class for credit. Don't tell anyone. So our faculty testimonial here is about a teacher who had the students in his class. He loved the energy. He loved the laughter. He loved the joy. It was contagious. The students in the class also engaged with our students seamlessly. There was no, it wasn't artificial, it was authentic. So this is an awesome testimonial from a faculty who will welcome students in an ongoing way in his classroom. We have plans for sustainability and the future. We are looking at Skyline College, which is another local community college in in San Mateo County. We are targeting expansion for that program to be open hopefully in the 25-26 school year. Funding sources at this point, community college is free, so the students are accessing the community college at very low cost, and the school district is funding all of the rest of the programs, staffing, and we are looking for other means to collaborate with agency support. So I have a little video here from Matthew that I thought you might like.
Mateo. I believe that there's system and system that's job and then I learn work stuff busy and my guys work sites and me awesome and then go up.
So I'll just give you a little background on Matthew. Obviously, he said it. I'm going to say it. He's awesome. He loves being at CSM. He is, as he said, very busy. He's working. He's taking classes, and he has really thrived being at CSM this year. So student voice, I think, is always the most important voice to listen to. And we had several takes on this video, I'm just going to say. We had a lot of other information that I'd love to share with you, but I wanted to keep it a little bit short for you. So that's Matthew, and he's thriving. This is a group of students who do work in the cafeteria. This is a very large student center, and this was a welcoming opportunity from the cafeteria staff and the food service department to have the students work both in the kitchen, serving food, and then working in the student center. So this is kind of our posse here. The students at CSM do travel there on their own. They are independent on campus. As they're transitioning, they do have support. And we're just super excited. This year we supported 9 students. Next year we'll support 10 students. So, and these are my final thoughts. And this is Amira, and her presentation speaks for
My
itself.
name is Amira Davis. My favorite class at CSM was PE. Bayquest made me feel independent. I was able to take Samtrans by myself. I also went to classes by myself.
So I'm happy to answer any questions, but just wanted to share kind of what we're doing and our students who are just making amazing progress, and appreciate ACSE and the Grazer family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very curious about, actually, if you spend a little bit more time with us. I obviously want to highlight the great work that's happening, but for others who may be watching, is there any advice or suggestions if I, in my local community, wanted to replicate a program? What does it take? Who do you start talking with? What partnerships are essential?
Sure, thank you. Well, I think this is an example of a program. I think that there are exemplars across the state as well, which are proud partners for us for learning. This started with a conversation, and really the driving force was a teacher who was really committed to moving his students to a college setting. And then, of course, the voices of the students and the parents. But our partnership with College of San Mateo is strong. Our district has relationships with College of San Mateo. We have a middle college program there, and we do dual enrollment. So there's a forged relationship with CSM. I think finding the right partner and the right person to help carry the vision forward. As far as the relationships that exist on campus, those students drive those. People are interested. They want to know what's happening. They want to get involved. And so that again becomes our teacher and our staff who's making those relationships, who's showing up at the happy hours, who's building strong foundation for giving access to our students. So I think there are exemplars. I think the college settings have been a long-standing opportunity for our students who are 18 to 22 years old. And I think this is I think there's real interest out there, and I think if you find that right partner and you have that conversation, I think people are really open to the idea. And I think what I wanted to highlight is that the students who participate at CSM have a wide variety of abilities and strengths and amazingness. So I wanted to highlight these 2 student speakers who could give you a sense of what they love about going to CSM. I'll tell you, Matthew his bus didn't come one day, and he was like, I'm going to school. So he made it to school. I mean, no one was more surprised than his parents who were like, he doesn't know how to do that. Well, turns out he did know how to do that. So that's kind of one of those aha moments where we need to, give students opportunities in safe ways to show us what they know.
I just want to thank you, and I was really excited to hear your presentation. My daughter with disabilities is a rising high school freshman, and I am currently helping her set up her disabilities accommodations with a dual enrollment at Sac City College, and it's very daunting. It's so different from the IEP process in the regular school years that it's great to see that there's actually a program set up for these students to help them transition and set them up for success. So it's exciting. I'm sorry, I'm a Dodgers fan, so I kind of get that these kids are not here. I would love to have met them in person. So congratulations to you, your program, and the students for doing what they're doing. So thank you.
Good morning. First of all, congratulations. The award was very well earned. So thank you for all your work. I just appreciate the focus and the commitment to serving all of our students, particularly at the post-secondary level, and given some of the data that you've shared around post-secondary outcomes for students with disabilities. And I think the more schools that are doing this kind of work, the more interest there's going to be at the college level to partner with school districts. And so I appreciate you being one of those trailblazers. Congratulations.
And I want to scan for any commissioners online who wish to make a comment. Okay, so another follow-up for me.
Sorry,
go ahead, please.
May I make a comment? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner Notch, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, I could not let this presentation end without congratulating Dr. Wade on the Gold Award. It's such an amazing achievement and a well-deserved recognition of all of your hard work and dedication in the field. Overflowing with San Mateo County pride, and couldn't be more excited to see one of our own districts being honored today. And Dr. Wade is retiring this year. And so this is just such a fitting tribute to your incredible career and all of the ways that you have improved outcomes and enhanced experiences for students. And I'm just so excited for you and for the program. So congratulations on your well-earned and deserved retirement. And thank you so much for highlighting this wonderful program.
Thank you, Sarah.
Any other online comments from commissioners?
Sorry, I keep talking. I just want to say, you mentioned that you were not the only program and that and that there are others around the state. And that is so exciting to hear. This should be this should be what is expected. And so I hope this is hopefully, highlighting your program and bringing this to everyone's mind in the state will really, and across the country, will encourage everyone, whether their students are in these types of programs or not, to just view this as just a normal expectation that our schools will provide this program, students can participate. So thank you for helping us move in that direction.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
If I could ask one more question.
Absolutely.
We focused on the positive. I'm curious if I and my local community wanted to replicate this program, what are barriers to be considered? What are some of the challenges? Because our primary role is to advise, and so if we were to say, hey, state partners, here's something you should be aware of that presents a barrier for innovative programs, what would you share as maybe a high-level barrier to be aware of?
Well, I think a watch for is that the program isn't adjacent to the college, but it's embedded in the college. It's truly inclusive and equity-driven. I think that's a watch for. I also think, unfortunately, the conversation still has to be grounded in presumed competence, and that as we promote access and equity for all, that there may be some barriers around, will these students be successful? And then all the other, narrative and noise we've heard for years and years. So I think the driver has to be, making sure students are in the forefront, making sure they're finding their way. And I will say that on some levels, finding that place at the college, finding a landing ground, and then that way to become full members of that community it's essential. And so there may be barriers as far as that's concerned. And I will say shout out to Jared Abbott and his team, our teacher, who it continues to be, I think the teacher needs to be a driver. And I don't necessarily think that teacher should be out there having to develop relationships in order to make access available. So he is a very courageous guy, and he's very outgoing, and you want to kind of hang out with him and you want to know him. But I don't necessarily think that should be something that's required in order to get those doors open. So I think community colleges are ready, willing, and able to make those partnerships happen, and really proud of the work that College of San Mateo has done with our school district. And I would say the other need is that you have a strong school district behind you. You have a strong superintendent, and we have a very strong board of trustees who are very, very, very proactive and very supportive of all students in the district, especially those who I think need a little extra added support and a little extra added, highlight, bright light, and opportunities. So it takes a community to build programs like this. And I think those are the things I would highlight, but those are some of the barriers I would watch for. And I'll have a ton of time, so if anybody wants to call me, I'd be happy to talk to them about how to do this. So again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you today. Thank you.
Dr. Wade. And so before we transition to public comment, you're all good. So commissioners, obviously just really going back to our responsibilities to advise. So want to recognize, we will have some of the accoutrement. They go with an award later today, and then obviously an opportunity in the subsequent months to continue to promote the information we've learned today. In our advisement, beyond just here's a great example, here's a bright spot, I'm thinking through like dual enrollment. That is part of our educational landscape, and so the opportunity that we have, not just in our annual report, and even going forward to like as opportunities come online and exist, where our voice and advocacy. So it's like not a bright spot, but just something we plan for as schools are building out their dual enrollment programs or the Golden Pathway program. In a conversation with State SELPA last week, we had the conversation around like advocating on the front end. So there doesn't have to be renovation to then include or create spaces where our students with disabilities have a sense of belonging after we've gotten the plane up and in the air and running just right. And so as more and more dual enrollment programs are coming online, I think it represents an opportunity for us as we attempted like with community schools to say, hey, students with disabilities, here's an example of what that might look like. And here are places where we can uplift the partnerships, not just between LEAs and institutes of higher education, but regional centers, other community-based organizations who are still in the picture during these years of our students' lives during K-12 enrollment, where we can all put our funds at the table and our resources for opportunities for success. One of the things that resonates with me from Matthew's video, one is joy, saying I learned and I worked, and I think all of us who have experienced undergraduate, think of a class that was an elective that you may have found like your jam, dancing, cooking, art. And so the opportunities to just explore that are natural expectations for some of our students that, as we've said, should become the norm for all students. And so the challenge for us as we are moving into our annual report writing and obviously our work next year, identifying opportunities to advise around a program and policy level as we're highlighting bright spots for replication, so that the conversations always begin with but for students, that is inclusive of all students, and looking at the resources that we can bring for innovative programs. So with that, I will scan the dais and online for any additional commissioner discussion. No hands up? So please, Commissioner Groff, or Vice Chair Groff.
Yes, no, thank you, and I apologize for not being there in person to congratulate the goal awardees. But I'm wondering if there's any way that we, either as a commission or maybe from the department, to work with employers to really get the word out in terms of employing our graduates from programs like this. The unemployment rate for persons with disabilities is about 70%, which, is just a staggering number. And also the notion, and I really applaud the California Department of Rehabilitation to say that all individuals with disabilities should have a family sustaining wage. So while it's wonderful to have these college programs, I think we have to look sort of at the next step as to how we can encourage employers to open their doors widely and be able to recruit and employ our graduates and give them that family sustaining wage. So again, congratulations. There's more work, I think, for all of us to do. Thank you.
I also did want to say congratulations, and I think that work is being done for students with disabilities on dual enrollment and entering into the workforce. I think that it's very critical because at my school, I'm actually a dual enrollment student, so I don't take AP courses, but dual enrollment has allowed me to really grow as a student, but also the college district that I'm in, they're really accessible, but also it's a whole different process like your regular typical school because you're at a community college. So I think that continuing as my role as a commissioner, I really want to advocate for dual enrollment because not a lot of people do dual enrollment, and a lot of students with disabilities want to do APs, but they feel like APs are extremely hard, but why can't we do something else? Because at the college, at a community college, you're able to take a cooking class, a dance class, a ballet class. You're able to do so much, and I think that that's the work that I want to advocate for, and maybe we could advise policy on dual enrollment for students with disabilities. I think next year we might have a chance to go to the Capitol and talk with our policymakers, but maybe talking more about policy based on dual enrollment for students with disabilities.
Thank you both for those comments, and Vice Chair Groff, I appreciate you highlighting the one of the primary goals is life-sustaining wage. And education prepares us for that, and obviously higher education, research shows, creates greater opportunities, and so employers being made aware of there's a population of potential candidates who can contribute to the success of your organization, and in partnership with local community colleges and four-year universities. I think it's something that we are seeing more bright spots, but as Commissioner Tugg-Stargle shared, are there opportunities for us to really highlight in our work and advisement around these programs, whether it's dual enrollment, and I would also highlight the Golden State Pathways program that provides TA to LEAs and has the same goals in terms of here are areas where the workforce has identified, healthcare, education, and climate related fields that provide programs that students who have those interests. And so is this an opportunity for us to highlight opportunities for individuals with disabilities who are still in K-12? And so maybe in our August meeting, as that agenda is being developed, we have a follow-up conversation, and whether it's Department of Rehab, I think it's been a while since we had our partner and friend, Joe Xavier, update us on the work of the Department of Rehab, and we can help craft a vision around what our advisement around this looks like next year. And so I would ask if you would share the slide for public comment. And any individuals in the room wishing to make public comment, if you would line up in the back. Okay. Seeing no public comment in the room, we will close public comment in the room. And I'll give 30 more seconds for folks who are dialing in. There's no one. So are there any public comments online?
There are no callers at this time.
Yeah. With that, I will close public comment online. And again, thank you, Dr. Wade, and the team from San Mateo High and the community for sharing your great work with us. And again, congratulations on the recognition. With that, we are a little bit ahead of time, and we have a bit of a tech issue that we need to work out to ensure everyone is able to access the meeting. And so we will take a momentary break. Our next scheduled item is slated to begin at 11, and so we will be back at 11 for the next item so that we can work through our access issue right now. See everyone at 11. Thank you and welcome back. I want to extend our appreciation for everyone's patience. Access is important and kind of like something we have to honor as the Advisory Commission on Special Ed. And so thank you for the team who are working on resolving that challenge. We are very happy to have a virtual presentation from the Orange County Department of Education to share details about the Connections program, which also is a recipient of the Gold Award. And so I believe the presenters are online, and so I will yield the space to our presenters.
It's not me or you. Well, we're here. Got a little bit of feedback. So you turn your speaker on. I have my microphone. Okay. So yes, thank you so much. We are just thrilled to be here to accept this award, and I'm so happy to see our staff online that are getting an opportunity to hear what we won, and we're like I said, just thrilled to be here. So I know we have a PowerPoint that we're going to share.
It looks like they're sharing the slides. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Fine, and we have access to your slide deck.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and, I think it would be nice for us to introduce ourselves first. So my name is Annalee Cradle, and I have the privilege, especially today, of being the Chief of Special Education Services. So couldn't be more proud to have that job than I have today. So thank you so much. So I'll turn it over to Molly.
And I'll introduce myself, and then I'll allow my other colleagues that are on the call to introduce themselves as well. My name is Molly Foltz. I'm a manager with OCDE's Special Education Services Division, and I get to work with the wonderful Marianne Taylor and Jeanette Rial, and I will let them unmute and introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marianne Taylor, CTE Project Liaison for Orange County Department of Ed Connections at Harbor Learning Center, and it's been an honor to have received this award, and I'd like to now introduce my colleague, Jeanette.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanette Rial.
We can't hear you, Marianne and Jeanette. You're not. It doesn't appear that you're muted, but we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, we can hear Jeanette just fine.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. So I'm Jeanette Rial. I'm with the Connections Program, Special Education Services, and I'm the vocational education consultant. So we're super excited to be here.
Oh, bummer. Still not hearing you, but that's Marianne with the blonde hair, and Jeanette is next to her. They're waving. Marianne is our CTE project liaison over at Harbor Learning Center South, which is the program that you can hear them. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Molly, can you hear us now? Molly, can you hear?
I have my microphone. You have your speaker. So it just gets problematic. We're trying to run two Zooms in the same room. So thank you for letting me know that you can hear them. Also on the call is Chris Romanowski. She is our Director of Special Education, and she is waving right there.
Hi, everyone.
And then you can't see her right now. She's off camera. There she is. This is Kamika Barnes. She's our administrator in special education services here with OCDE. So we have our whole team here. We're super excited to share a little bit about our program. And I will just let you know when to advance the slide if that works for everyone else. I'll just get through the slides fairly quickly. And then if you have any questions, you can feel free to open it up for questions. All right. So we are Connections. We have
recently rebranded ourselves with this wonderful name, Connections, empowering every learner. And what's very special about this title is it really demonstrates all the connections that we seek to make with our students, with parents and families, with our community, and as you'll see in our presentation here today, our industry partners. So next slide, please. This is our team. I already went through everybody. This is just our names and our titles. Of note, there are a couple people that we're missing. Krista Paul, who is our principal at Harbor Learning Center South, which is the school site where the project that we submitted for this award takes place. Also not on the call is Nathan Gipple. He is our other CTE project liaison that works with the team with Marianne and Jeanette and myself. He was not able to be on the call today. And is that everybody I have on there? I believe so. I can barely see it, but okay, next slide. So a little bit about our Connections program. Hold on. Oh, I don't know why I can't see those slides. Let me see it. So we serve 13 school sites throughout Orange County, all the way from northern Orange County to southern Orange County. And we serve students from ages preschool through 22 years of age. Our average class size is 8 to 10 students. And each class is staffed with a teacher and 2 paraeducators. There may be more paraeducators in the classrooms, as many classrooms have one or more of those special circumstance aides because of behavior or because of the medical needs of the student. Next slide. These are the different types of programs that we provide for our students. We do have adult transition for our students who are in that 18 to 20-year-old age category. We have programs for students who are deaf and hard of hearing, students who have emotional disturbance. Also, we have programs for our little tiny babies, which we call our PIEs, which stands for Parent Infant Education and Support. So that's support for our little ones that have hearing impairments. We also serve students with physical disabilities and who have those specialized healthcare needs. And finally, we have our special day classes for our students that are working on their language and their behavior. Next slide. So we're going to tell you, I'm just going to assume that you know what CTE is, but I'll tell you a little bit more that's very basic, just in case you don't know what it is. So CTE is an acronym that stands for Career Technical Education, and it's very special because it integrates not only that academic knowledge, but also technical and occupational knowledge as well. It provides our students with a pathway to those post-secondary education and careers. As we know in special ed, that's something that we spend a lot of time doing through our individual transition planning as students start to get into high school and we start looking at what they're going to be doing once they leave our programs after age 22. CTE is organized into 15 industry sectors. Next slide. And I think I have a visual coming up, perhaps. I'm not sure. We'll see. I can't remember if I put them in there or not. But why is CTE important? It's important because through CTE, our students with disabilities can develop independent living skills, as well as personal, workplace, and people skills. And these are all those things that we work on from preschool all the way through age 22 in our adult transition programs in the form of behavior goals, social emotional development, daily living skills, pre-vocational and vocational skills. And students that have IEPs, they found that are engaged in CTE have higher rates of high school completion and graduation. They're more likely to be equipped with the academic proficiency as well as those employability skills that are so important for our students to learn. And then at the bottom of the slide, you'll see that it says linking CTE to the transition planning. So every year, you know, before our students turn 16 and they have to have that ITP, but including CTE in that is an effective way to help those students to get out of the disability trap, as they call it, and to close the achievement gap, which is what we're always trying to do. Next slide. Here's that visual. I thought I had put it in here, but these are the 15 different industry sectors that career technical education covers. They range from things like energy and utilities, hospitality, different things like that. Well, our little program focuses on the very first green circle you see there, which is agriculture and natural resources. Next slide. And there's that big green emblem right there. So what we've done over at Harbor Learning Center is we've created a two-course sequence of a plant and soil science pathway, which is one of the pathways that falls under that agriculture and natural resources industry sector. I've included, they're just little tiny screenshots, so I in no way expect anybody to be able to read those. But those are just screenshots of our course outlines that we've developed for our concentrator, which is the first year of the course, and our capstone course. And what's nice is that these have been coded and we are able to offer students elective credit for these courses if they need to have that. Next slide. One of the really important things, we talk about the academic skills that they learn, the employability skills, the technical skills that they're learning. But one really important piece that we've discovered in our program that's been a benefit is what we call students getting their daily dose. And dose, we're going to say, stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So it sounds super sciencey, but we'll break it down a little bit more for you. So next slide, please. So when students are coming out and working in the garden, in the program, I'll show you some more pictures in a little bit, but I want to go through this first. They are getting that dose of dopamine, which is that happy hormone, right? And it boosts their mood. You got to get your daily dose. So I can't see the small print, but you can see it on there. And I don't want to take the time to enlarge it on my screen. Next slide. The next piece that they get is the O component of that dose, and that's that oxytocin. And so that's where we get that bonding chemical, that well-being, we feel good. And so gardening and caring for plants and animals can release that oxytocin in human beings, including our students, which can really help them feel better. Next slide. The S of our DOSE acronym is serotonin. So that's another happiness mood booster. It boosts our immunity, and getting your hands dirty, whether or not you like it, can increase your serotonin levels and help with those happier feelings. Next slide. And finally, endorphins. That's the E of our DOSE acronym. This will help us with those positive vibes, more of that feel-good hormone. So what we found in working with our students in our program by providing these experiences is really the increase in benefits that they've had in mental health, in being more positive, and all of those different components that go along with that. Next slide. So I'm just going to show you some photos now and excuse me, and show you a little bit of our program in action. So what you're looking at on the slide right here is I took a picture out of the window of our classroom, and this is our school garden at Harbor Learning Center. So on this particular day, this is what this garden looked like. But if I were to go take a picture of that same garden from that same window once, twice, 3 times a week, it's going to look different in every photo that I take, because that's the beauty of that garden, is always changing and evolving. And that's thanks to the work that our students and our teachers are doing. Next slide. These are just some more pictures. The photo on the left was, we had an opportunity to have a guest speaker who came out and talked about how to plant strawberries. And they brought strawberry seeds or plants, and the students were planting those. That was an excellent opportunity to connect with our community members. The other photo on the right is just another shot of our beautiful garden and what's taking place in there. Next slide. The photo on the left, this is where students do all kinds of different things. They get the soil ready for things to be planted. They plant the seeds. They propagate the seeds. They harvest. They weed. They water. They fertilize. So all the great things that need to happen to help the garden grow. On the right is just a lovely picture of some planter boxes that we have right now. Just a really beautiful spot right now. And next slide. Again, here's some more of our students working out in the garden. Oh, yeah. And something else that we do in the garden is we engage in composting. So things that are left over from lunches, things that maybe we pull out of the garden, but we're not going to be able to eat. We're able to compost those items and they go right back into the soil. So students also learn about that connection between what we're eating and what we are able to put back into the environment. Next slide. Again, here's another shot from that same window. This on the left-hand side is a great area where our students are able to work. They've got tables up at counter height so they can do their planting and anything that they're doing. They also will decorate items that they've made from the garden to sell at our market. I think I have that on a slide coming up. And on the right is a beautiful sunflower, and we cannot talk about our garden without those beautiful sunflowers. So just sharing that with you. Next slide. We have been able, as part of this program, we've established a 4-H charter, and it is affectionately named the HLC Breakfast Club. And if you're not familiar with 4-H, it's a wonderful program. The 4 H's stand for head, heart, hands, and health. And what we were looking for was an opportunity for our students to engage in some leadership opportunities. And 4-H provides that opportunity for students to get that leadership experience. And we also are able to use it as a platform to bring guest speakers in for our students so that they can learn about different careers and opportunities that they might be interested in pursuing later in life. Next slide.
And if I could just comment a little bit on the 4-H, I believe that we are one of a very few programs in the entire state that has been chartered for the school so that our students can participate. It's generally something that occurs outside of school. So it's been wonderful to work with the UC Extension and 4-H to allow us the opportunity to have our 4-H club during the school day.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So the slide that you're looking at now is Market Day. So as part of our program, students learning all of the skills and getting all the benefits that we talked about before, we have also established what we call Market Days. And this is when students will come out once a month to our central office out in Costa Mesa. And they will set up shop, if you will, and they will sell items that have either been grown in the garden or made from items grown in the garden or craft type of items that they've been inspired to make. And this has really been a great opportunity as it allows our central office employees to come out and interact with our students. Because if you think about those people that are working in the business office or doing IT, or some of the more of those things where they're not out at the school sites with us, they don't have as many opportunities to interact with students. Ultimately, all the work they're doing is benefiting students. So it's really nice to have them be able to connect with that. So employees will come out, they will interact with students. Students learn customer service skills. They are making change. They are greeting people as they come to the table. So it's just an opportunity for them to practice all of those skills that we work on at school in an actual different type of setting. Next slide. This is just some more photos of our market day set up out at our central market or our central office. And I can't believe that I didn't include some very, very important photos, but we have resident chickens. So we have chickens at Harbor Learning Center, which has been another great opportunity for students to be responsible for taking care of an animal, learning the different things that they need to do every day to check in on the chickens, to check their claws and check their backsides to make sure that they don't need cleaning, checking for eggs, feeding, watering, and cleaning up. And really, the chickens have provided an opportunity for students to kind of overcome their fears of engaging with an animal or things of that nature. So I feel like I talked really fast, and so my next slide just says thank you, and we are so appreciative of you taking the time to read about our program and to consider us for this wonderful honor and award that you've considered us for. We need a speaker now.
Well, and
We have to get a speaker back on because we still can't hear.
are you able to hear me? It'd be weird if I went on and on about how great the presentation was if they can't hear us.
We can hear you now.
Perfect. So thank you so much for sharing the details of the program, not just in the presentation, but obviously through the application process. And what really resonates and is inspiring for me is just the connections that you've made to the whole child, understanding the joy aspect and happiness and social emotional components, the connection to CTE, and I really appreciate you calling out the disability gap or trap. And how we can leverage our programs to create to create expanded opportunities for our students with disabilities to learn about career technical skills and the market day. You can make a very easy transition to your local farmers market and those skills being transferable and being a part of what is agriculture is kind of a big part of our economy here. And so tying the work that you're doing in the connections programs to the long-term outcomes really aligns with our vision for what public education can provide for students with disabilities. And so thank you so much for sharing details of your program. I will scan the dais starting on my left and then right and then online for other commissioner comments. Commissioner Wilkins.
I just want to thank you for your presentation. DDS has several students who attend Harbor Learning Center through our South Star home, and it's always been a great place for them to participate in. I'm wondering if the students also have the opportunity to participate in workability programs, and if you have seen the CTE program having any impacts on your Indicator 14 post-secondary school outcomes, and what those might look like.
Yes.
Let's turn your volume up real quick. There we go.
Oh, now you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have. I mean, this is something that we work on going. You can see that we jumped heavy into the ag and the soil and working in this sector, but we certainly have a variety of other sectors that we continue to support our students in. We're perfectly suited in Orange County to have access to a lot of different industries, which is nice. And so we work, Jeanette Rial is our vocational specialist that is just forever looking for those additional opportunities for our students. We knew, while this is an area that has been very successful for us, we also know that, students have different interests and needs, and we want to expose them to as many of those as possible. So we have things in hospitality, restaurant, in some cases, we're very close to a lot of those things. So we provide those opportunities for our students as well.
Yeah, I was just asking if Jeanette wanted to add anything onto it as Annalee referenced her. Jeanette?
Yeah, definitely. So as it pertains to workability, so I came from a workability program at my past district, and they haven't quite been doing new grants for new programs, but we're always looking to see about partnering with Department of Rehabilitation or Disability Works California, because I know they're changing their name. But like Annalise said, we have retail, we have restaurants that our students are currently involved in through exploratory work experience education. So this is something we're looking to expand as far as the ag program goes. We do currently have students working at a peace farm down in San Juan Capistrano, and that's a place where they're able to generalize skills right now. But yeah, that's one of our big goals, is to connect with a big box or even a mom and pop to create that pathway and make sure our students are prepared for competitive integrated employment. So that's, again, one thing that we're expanding on constantly, and looking forward to partnering with, corporations, organizations to provide those skills for our students.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your presentation and for all of your work supporting our students. I really appreciate the focus on CTE, given the positive impact that it has on students with disabilities, their graduation rates, development of employability skills, and think that this is incredibly important work, and appreciate you undertaking that work. Side note, I also really love the Daily Dose acronym. And so congratulations on the award. It is very well earned and well deserved.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Any comments from commissioners who are joining us online? Seeing none. Dr. Heenan?
Good morning. I just want to thank OCDE for consistently providing outstanding services to our students with disabilities in Southern California. I've had the opportunity to work with Annalee in the past, and always being creative, thinking outside the box on how we can envision the possibilities and serve our students in different capacities, and thinking outside the box. So thank you for your presentation, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And before we wrap up, just curious if, and I shared this with the last presentation, and given our role to advise, I'm curious, like, you're doing great work. What's a barrier you might share that you would want us to be aware of, or another LEA who said, love the idea, want to model that? What's the barrier that folks should be aware of or challenge that you might need to be prepared to address if someone was going to try and replicate your model?
That's a great question. I'm going to let Annalee take that one.
Well, I mean, some of the barriers are just, this is when you need to, Rachel said it very well. This is really an outside of the box kind of approach, in that you really have to, there's a lot of moving parts here. It's ongoing. It's a great fit for an organization like ours, where we're in school a lot of school days, right? So, because one of the biggest reasons why just your traditional school gardens fail is because students they only maybe are in school 180 days, right? 185. And then you need to look for volunteers. Our program runs longer, and then we've created mechanisms in order for us to continue to maintain this. Because again, a farm or a garden opportunity is only as good as what's there for students to see on a daily basis. And and as Mary Ann would tell you, we certainly have had our share of farm fails, right? Over the process of this, we've had a lot of opportunities to create things that haven't worked, but they've been a good opportunities for students to see that, crops that didn't work, or, under irrigation, over irrigation. All the pieces that happens in a real kind of farm garden environment. And so I think that's one of those things that's nice for us. I know one of the components of this opportunity for us was the whole us being able to replicate this, right, and share with others. We've already had that opportunity. We've had a couple of other county offices that have expressed an interest, have actually come and seen what we've done. So as an opportunity for them to just replicate what we're doing, but they're also learning from some of the fails that we've had, right? So that's, I think, probably, I also would like to say the Orange County Department of Ed, our executive leadership, have been extremely supportive of what we're doing. And so that has been a really important piece, that, make sure that those that want to move forward, that you have a strong commitment. We've had a strong commitment because we know that in serving students with the most significant disabilities, we know these are the most challenging individuals to find work for. And I believe very strongly that that ag is a very substantial piece of California. And I know that our students could be successful. There's so many layers within this kind of work that there are those pieces that our students could be. It's real work, and it's really important work, right? Feeding people is really important. And that's a strong message throughout the whole program. And we've made that a really strong push. So that's one way to get over some of the barriers, because it is important work. We all have important work, right? But I think that's an important piece when you have those conversations, is that our students can provide and give back to their communities. And that's what a lot of us do, particularly those of us that are in this work. We want to feel like we're giving back. Well, this is an opportunity for our students to feel like they can give back as well. So barriers, I think we've hit a lot of them. But I think within that, it allowed us the opportunity to be able to share this work moving forward.
I'm wondering if Marianne has anything to add in terms of barriers or, things that we kind of were challenged with and may be helpful to others as they try to replicate something similar to what we've been able to do.
Yes, thank you, Molly. I concur with Anna Lee. The farm and the garden is 365 days a year, and she's absolutely right. Schools that have 180 days, they have a great failure rate because, as we know, as farmers, everything harvests between June and September. So I think having funding, a staff at every district or school that's going to take on these challenges of being a farmer, just the funding's there, so you have a year-round staff to provide those resources. So when students come back in September, they're not walking into a failed garden, but they're coming into a garden that's flourishing and thriving. And so they get to take the bounty when they come back to school. So they might have planted it during the school year, but come September, they're taking home a harvest. So like all challenges, we know it's a place to pivot and we can get stronger and learn those lessons. And we've done that well in every aspect. And all the programs that we've developed over the last 5 years, there was a lot of hit and miss, but I think we've had more hits than misses, and having a great staff to work with communication and just collaboration and just the curiosity of what would this look like. And I think when you have that collaborative spirit, it's amazing how everything just works forward. And I just can't thank you enough. And working with our department has just been such a joy.
Thank you, Marianne. The only thing I want to add to that in terms of barriers is just overall, and this isn't just specific to the agriculture sector that we're working in, but I think just the barrier of being people's perceptions of what our students are able to do. So I think, and that's across the board. So I just didn't want to leave without saying that we need to continue to work on, helping people to perceive our students' abilities and strengths and what they can add to their community as ongoing. So I know I'm preaching to the choir on that, so I won't perseverate on that. But thank you.
Thank you so much for the information that you've shared. And one of the details that I walked away with in my learning is you shared the partnership with 4-H. And typically those are after school programs and the partnership that allows it to be incorporated into the school day, and just like the significance of that change in terms of bringing in a partnership as well as creating an experience for our students to participate in the 4-H experience, which is phenomenal. But just those little tweaks that were previously barriers. And so any organizations who are thinking about replicating, like reaching out and asking the question, what if we moved it from 3 to 5 and incorporated it in our day, what innovations could take place. And so thank you, team from Orange County, for sharing your work. I'm sure we will continue to learn from you as you continue to work outside of the box and do great things for kids. With that, I will ask for the slide for public comments to be displayed, and anyone in the room wishing to make public comments to please line up. So, not seeing any public comments in the room, I will close public comment in the room and wait a few more seconds just in case someone was dialing in. Are there any public comments online?
There are no callers at this time.
With that, we will close this agenda item. Just quick agenda view, we will be breaking for lunch between 11:45 and 1 p.m. We will come back for general public comment at 1 p.m. promptly, and then move into our first presentation following lunch at 1:05 p.m. Regarding Project MuSE. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you after the break. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. We'll be going into general public comment. This is an opportunity that we've highlighted in our agenda to hear from members of the public who may not be able to keep up with the conversations throughout the day. So a time fixed for us to hear comments from the general public around anything that's on the agenda. And so we will open that comment in the room as well as online. So I'll ask members of the public in the room wishing to make public comment to please line up at the microphone in the back. And anyone online wishing to make public comment, please continue dialing in or begin dialing in. Seeing no public comment in the room, I will close public comment in the room and pause momentarily to provide a few more seconds for folks who may be calling in. Okay, I am seeing that there are no public comments coming from online, and so at this point we will close general public comment. Before we go into our next agenda item, I just want to express again our appreciation to the State SELPA Association, the SELPA Administrators of California, for hosting lunch for the goal awardees and recipients, and not just for the recipients, any teammate on the CDE team who happened to be within a mile radius of the department this afternoon. And so want to highlight the ongoing support and partnership with our friends at the SELPA Association, and we look forward to continuing that partnership in the future. With that, I would like to move into our next agenda item. Agenda item 4, the Multilingual Students with Exceptional Needs Project, or Project MuSE. We are very delighted to have the members of the leadership team from the Imperial County SELPA, who are the lead agencies for this very important work, and just highlighting that this is in response to one of our last conversations at the previous meeting around how we are providing support for multilingual students. And so without any further ado, Director, I have too many words in my head. Christina, please take it away.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me well? Awesome. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Christina Zavala, and I am the Senior Director for Imperial County SELPA. And thank you for the invitation to be here, because we're always excited about the opportunity to share in more detail and in more depth regarding our project and how we support the state and the unique needs of our multilingual students with exceptional needs. So to get started, again, we are Project MuSE. This project is brought to you in partnership and funded by CCEE and our partners at CDE, and we are currently in the second iteration of this grant, and we like to call Project MuSE our 2.0. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And to get started, I'd like to introduce to you our small but mighty team. And I'd like to share with you really how deliberate and intentional the makeup of our team is, starting with in how we share with our educators across the state the message of building a multidisciplinary team to support the unique needs of our multilingual learners. And to get started, my background, again, my name's Christina Zavala, Senior Director for Imperial County SELPA. My background really lends itself in the area of school psychology. I was a school psychologist for 13 years in Imperial County in an elementary school district. And within my time there, I really gravitated towards learning more about supporting the needs of our English learners based on where we are in Imperial County, and also looking at ways to enhance their learning. I became an assistive technology assessor as well, and then moved on to a high school district where I was a special education director for grades 9 through 12. And then moving on to the SELPA as an inclusionary practices coordinator and starting my work with this project. And then again, with different events that happened, ended up coming on as the SELPA director, and with our former director moving on to Oceanside Unified School District in San Diego County. And and you'll be meeting Lupita Holguin Rubio and Vanessa Lopez as well here today. So Lupita's background is as a general education teacher. So she is holds our expertise in general education and all things English language development. So we really lean on her to provide us with that expertise in all of the nuances and critical work related to English language development and how there's that intersection in special education. And she was a teacher in Calexico Unified School District, which is also in Imperial County, before coming to the Imperial County Office of Education, where she has been serving for the past 24 years now, and 5 of those years being on this project with SELPA. Vanessa Lopez, our project coordinator, really is our expert in all things special education. She was a special education resource teacher for 18 years at Calexico Unified School District, and also in her time there served as a English language TOSA coach, worked in the area of technology, became an assistive technology assessor as well, and also has her credential as an adaptive physical education specialist. And also moved on into the SELPA to work on this project for the past 5 years. And then luckily we are blessed with continuing to work with Dr. Deborah Montoya, who's serving as our executive consultant. So really without Dr. Montoya, this work would not exist, and we're appreciative of what she has provided within the field and her expertise and her background being as a bilingual assessor, school psychologist, administrator for students with extensive support needs, then moving on to the SELPA as the SELPA director for 4.5 years, and again, continuing to provide her service and assistance to this critical work. So again, the makeup of our team is deliberate and intentional, and really a message that we try to send out across the state, that there isn't one person that knows everything, but we truly lean on one another to cover each other's blind spots and to highlight all of our superpowers and areas and expertise in which we bring to this project. And setting the context, just for all of us to be cognizant of where we have been and where we are now today, and how we got here in this trajectory over time since the release of the ELD standards, all the way to the California's release of the MTSS framework, and really remembering that students with disabilities live in all of these pockets. That's really the through line, that our students with disabilities are also English learners and come with unique assets and strengths, and really require a level of expertise to ensure high quality instructional practices and supports throughout their education. And remembering that now currently in 2019, the release of the Practitioner's Guide, the California's Practitioner Guide for educating English learners with disabilities, and remembering the purpose of that document is really our focal and foundational document that came together with multiple experts in the field to create common language and practices. It's a compendium of mandates, federal and state mandates, policy, evidence-based practices that we can really lean on for educators across the state to look to, so that we have consistency in our practices. And remembering that the Practitioner's Guide starts with the initial identification of a student as an English learner and those best practices. How does that happen? The assessment practice of identifying them as an English learner. What are the best practices to implement when the student is not making progress? So looking at your at an LEA's pre-referral practices, taking all of those elements into consideration when an English learner may not be making adequate progress, things for MTSS, SST teams to consider so that our students aren't being prematurely referred for special education, but really receiving some robust English language development supports prior to. And also the practitioner's guide provides excellent guidance on appropriate, culturally and linguistically appropriate assessment practices for our assessment teams. There's a lot of resources in there about what are all of the required elements for a comprehensive evaluation of an English learner, then leading into the development of an appropriate IEP should the child qualify and be identified as having one of the 13 distinct disabilities identified under IDEA, and looking at building an IEP that meets those unique needs of that student. How is comprehensive English language development both integrated and designated? I am presented in the IEP and crafted and developed with intentional needs and support for that student's unique needs. And then looking at a guidance on the development of linguistically appropriate goals and objectives for that student and how those are identified throughout the content areas in which the student is participating in, right? So that these goals are not happening in silos. They're not happening just when the student is receiving some type of special education support, but you're seeing it throughout all of the content areas in which the child is learning and participating in. And also ultimately to the potential reclassification of an English learner and potential exit from special education. So again, that is our guiding document that supports that common language and common practices that we are trying to disseminate and continue to provide coaching, professional development, and technical assistance with, and building resources upon that resource that are more targeted to meet the needs of students. So again, we are part of this statewide system of support. These are our special education system of support initiatives, in which we are so proudly and grateful to be a part of several partnerships with many of the special education content leads, open access, SIP, high quality IEPs. We recently presented at the ADR conference, the ACSE symposium on resources to support our early learners that are also multilingual learners, and really truly braiding together and connecting the dots of what the needs are for English learners, multilingual learners through all of these different initiatives. And we are very thankful for our state agency partners, CDE and CCEE, and their encouragement of the collaboration that we've engaged in throughout the year. Lupita will give a bit more detail on our partnerships with the various initiatives. But again, this truly is a macro level, high level overview of a multidisciplinary team. Our statewide system of support is really built upon meeting the unique needs of all of our students. And so we are grateful that many of these initiatives and partners are willing to identify and create new resources that address the needs of our English learners within our state. Again, so we are part of the statewide system of support. We are located in Imperial County, and those of you that are not familiar with Imperial County, we are located in the southernmost part of California. You could see us there down by the bottom. We are bordering Arizona and Mexico. And within Imperial County, just to give you some context, we serve, our SELPA serves 17 LEAs. That's about 36,000 students within Imperial County. About 94% of our students are identified as socioeconomically disadvantaged. 15% of our student population is identified as of students having a disability. And of those 15%, 46% are duly identified students. They're students with a disability and also English learners. And so also I wanted to share that recently with the CalPADS Fall 1 data that was released, our county was ranked first within the state of California as students identified as English learners. So we feel very poised and that we have the background to serve their students, and we're very passionate because it really hits close to home. And we'll share really how our reach has traveled across the state. This is a large state, but really truly we have the moral compass, the mission, the belief that this is a collective commitment. We are, again, part of the statewide system of support, and we really send the message of the fact that it takes all of us. It takes all of our areas of expertise to ensure the academic success, the linguistic progress, the social emotional well-being of our English learners with disabilities is a shared responsibility. There's not one person that has all of the answers, but we're working together with parents and families, school district professionals to promote that access and equity for our duly identified students to ensure that they receive the highest quality teaching and learning experiences. And we really send the message to our colleagues for them to reach across the table and build those partnerships when creating systems, quality systems for our students. These are our partnerships in which we've been working together within the statewide system of support. And again, all of these initiatives do have an element of supporting our English learners, and we're constantly looking for ways to partner with these initiatives and create new and targeted intentional resources that address the needs of English learners within high quality IEPs. We're working with them to build that lens of what does a high quality IEP look like for a multilingual learner? How can we support parents through the ADR project? What kind of resources can we provide with resources that are translated to meet the needs of parents so that they can actively engage and participate within not only the IEP process, but the pre-referral process when their child is not making progress. And this is just a quick example of a recent collaboration in partnership with California Includes, CECL, and Open Access. We had a webinar series that was actually focused on supporting the needs of multilingual students with extensive support needs. And actually, recently, we are excited to have the opportunity to add an additional team member to our team that has extensive experience in supporting the needs of students with extensive support needs that are English learners. So again, we recognize potential blind spots, and we really want to focus on building additional resources, professional development for our students with extensive support needs that are multilingual learners and the rich assets that they bring every day. And this is our why. So remembering why we engage in this work. Within the state of California, our students with disabilities currently, this is data from the 22-23 school year. Almost 25% of our students are duly identified within the state of California. So we know that in certain areas within the state, it's much higher, right? So when we meet with individual districts, we ask, what does this data look like within your own school district? What does it look like for your students with disabilities? What percentage of your students with disabilities are duly identified? Because if you remember, our monitoring systems don't typically demonstrate that, right? So when you are identified in DA, you're identified for a specific student group, right? So then you get identified for potentially an area for students with disabilities, but it really doesn't tell you. You really have to peel back the layers to see what percentage of those students are also students that are English learners with a disability. And truly, This is a message that we've been sharing as well through the SIM process, right? Because when you're engaging in those activities, looking for your problems of practice, engaging in root cause analysis, we're truly talking about the same students. So when we're building our activities through the DA process and through a SIM process, we're talking about the same group of students, right? And so we have to look at what are our practices within our LEAs that are supporting our duly identified students. And within the state of California, our multilingual learners with disabilities are present their home language, highest home language. The overwhelming identifier here is that Spanish is the most common language that is students are speaking in the home. Families with Vietnamese being the second highest commonly used, and then Arabic. And more later on in our presentation, Vanessa will show you how responsive we are to this data. We have made several of our resources available to families and translated, accessible online. It can be downloaded, changed, printed out for families to utilize and engage in both in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Arabic. And we're working this summer to add Cantonese, Mandarin, and Filipino. So we, again, are being responsive to the data from the state regarding the needs for accessible resources for our families to meaningfully engage and know which questions to ask when they have concerns. This set of data here identifies our statewide, our English learners in the school year of 22-23. You can see English learners, and this depicts language acquisition status. So this shows the difference between your English learners and your English learners with disabilities. And so if you look at your English learners that have been enrolled within the United States between 0 and 3 years, and then you're looking at, on the right side, your duly identified students that have been enrolled for 0 to 3 years, they're identified as English learners, more of a similar percentage, right? You have 24.8% on the left, 19.7% on the right. And then what you can see is that over time, the longer that they are enrolled and they're duly identified, the gap increases. So you have your at-risk students of becoming long-term English learners. They are enrolled for 4 to 5 years at 7.10%. And then it's still a little comparable with 10.8% for our duly identified students. But what is more telling is the increase for the LTELs. So they're enrolled 6 or more years at 11.10% when you're identified as an English learner, but that number grows significantly when you're duly identified. That increases to 27.5% of students being LTELs, right? And then what is the greater jump as well is the number of students that are become RFEP, reclassified fluent English proficient. So English learners on your left, 45.50% were identified as RFEP, and then you have a lower number for duly identified students at 28.30% on your right. These are questions that we pose when we're working with districts and LEAs and practitioners, both statewide through statewide PDs or more providing that professional development, is that what we like to ask and uncover and discuss is that what does this data mean within your own LEAs, right? What does this look like within your own LEAs, and what does this tell us? What are the questions that we can ask regarding the comprehensive linguistic supports that students need in order to make progress? And what's happening when students are identified as having a disability that reduces their acquisition of English as a second language, their progress. It seems to bring up questions of like, what does their IEP look like? Do their IEPs have appropriate linguistic supports, their goals? What does it look like when they're in the general education setting across various content areas? Are they receiving those robust supports that they should be receiving? It's not an either or. It's not they qualified for special education, so now they get special education somewhere, right? It's really a bridging of the supports that they're entitled to through Title III. Right? And then also ensuring that those conversations are happening, those robust conversations are happening during IEP meetings to ensure that the IEP is being developed with those needs in mind, that the comprehensive ELD supports, integrated and designated, don't go away when the child qualifies for special education, but needs to be blended together to look at how does the disability manifest, impact their learning in relation to their ability to acquire English as a second language. And remembering as well that the data shows that LTELs, when students become LTELs in middle to high school, they can become more disengaged with school. So that's something that we have to look at when we're looking at our data, our monitoring, our chronic absenteeism, our suspension rates. What are the percentage of English learners that are potentially duly identified that are in those student groups, and what kind of supports that can we provide, as well as social emotional supports? Are they receiving the linguistic supports that they need to actively engage in school so that we're ensuring quality education? And again, regarding our English learners with disabilities by qualifying disability category, these are how our students that are duly identified are what disability categories they're qualifying in, and this is by their primary disability, not their secondary, but it's mainly their primary. So you have, 43.64% are identified as having a specific learning disability, 20% as their primary disability identified as speech or language impairment, and 14.49% as autism. What about this brings about questions? So the question is, what is the commonality between these three disability categories in which our students are being identified in, our English learners? So really, what are our practices, both our pre-referral practices, our assessment practices, to ensure that our English learners aren't getting over-identified as having a disability? Because the common thread through these disability categories is language. So our assessment teams, do they have the right supports and services to ensure that we're able to disentangle the difference between a language disorder, a disability, or is it attributed to learning English as a second language? Again, we all know being an English learner, being a multilingual learner is not a disability. It's not one of the 13 disability categories. So it's imperative that we ask the questions of what is happening before those referrals, right? So when we're engaging in activities potentially for DA or SIM, let's go back and look at our data for the past several years and how many students did we qualify in our LEA for special education, and how many of them were English learners, and what practices did we put in place for interventions and supports, language supports to mitigate over-identification. Right, so those are some of the questions that we pose and see that even, again, autism having some delays in language and expression and expressive language, that we don't want to misidentify students. And now I will be passing it over to Lupita so she can share again further and how we've been deepening our work through the second iteration of our grant, and further share later. Vanessa will share some, walk you through our website and the resources that we have available for practitioners.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here today. It is a joy to be here and to share a little bit about our project. Christina has set a really, I call it alarming context for this work. And again, we are extremely grateful for the opportunity to share with you, knowing that you are in positions to be able to move the needle in your respective spheres of influence. And so again, it's an honor to be here with you today. So back to the beginning. When we first started this work 5 years ago, we were charged by the Department of Education to help support both the dissemination and implementation of this resource here, the California Practitioner's Guide for Educating English Learners with Disabilities. And so at the core, this is where we draw a lot of the resources that we have created, a lot of the information that we share out as we move and collaborate with other state agencies, with SELPAs, county offices, and LEAs. And at the core, we are drawing from this resource because we understand that it's important to have a grounding resource where folks can go to a one-stop shop, if you will. There are so many resources and initiatives statewide that it can become overwhelming for our practitioners, our LEAs that we serve, especially when they become engaged in these monitoring systems and they're looking and searching for a best practice. So we pride ourselves not only in having this grounding resource be at the core of our work, but also being able to leverage our partners in the statewide system of support, specifically the special education initiatives. And again, we're thankful to CCE and CDE who have really provided a space and a focus for us to be able to work together. This work is a collective commitment, and we absolutely agree that we need each other to be able to do the very best that we can and support our schools in this great state of California and do justice to our students, our kiddos. This one pager here basically is a resource to share with groups such as this to give you kind of a more comprehensive preview of the work that we've done and that we have been doing. So again, it's just a place for you to go to and circle back after this presentation to see what resources we have available to you. This particular slide here gives you a snapshot of current data that we've collected up to date. This is the second iteration of this grant. So as of July 2023, up to date, these are basically the numbers that we want to share with you today. As you can see here, we've impacted over 1,500 participants through the different types of professional development support that we've offered since July, and that is within 229 LEAs statewide. Of our professional development support and services, we've engaged with 40 county offices, 74 SELPAs, and 9 geographic lead regions were also represented. So we're very proud of these numbers, given that it's only been almost a year. And so we're hopeful that these numbers can continue, but not only the numbers continue to grow, but the impact continues to grow. So as we are rounding out our first year, we literally cannot stop talking about our year 2 goals. Where are we taking this work? How are we going to poise ourselves and lean on the other agencies to be able to really begin to have more impact? Our focus next year really is to have deeper conversations related to processes. What does your pre-referral process look like? So let's start with the data. Who are your English learners with disabilities? What does comprehensive ELD look like? Do we need to improve some of that? Do we need to train some of our special ed specialists on ELD standards? And begin to have those conversations more at the granular level, because that's how we know that we're going to begin to raise awareness and provide some resources and support to start recreating, refining our processes. That's how we know we're going to have impact on student achievement, by changing the processes with these specific students in mind. So again, we're very proud to share this information with you, and more excited to let you know that we're really focused on changing processes, supporting districts, and really thinking about your processes and practices with our dually identified students in mind. So this slide really just gives you an overview of the different types or degrees of support. Level 1 support are universal supports that are accessible to anybody and everybody in at different, they can access these resources at different entry points. You can engage with us individually, as a singleton through our professional development, or as teams. We have a Canvas course that Vanessa is going to walk you through that can be utilized, again, individually, self-paced. with a team, utilize its staff development. Again, it's just a way to make all of our resources accessible at different entry points for different folks, at different hats, if you will. Our level 2 resources are a little bit more focused, a little bit more streamlined, where we customize professional development based on a particular topic or focus, such as the pre-referral process, reclassification, the multilingual system of support, what does it look like for our dually identified students? So those are more focused, more streamlined professional development that we put together both to offer the vast demographics and practitioners in the state of California, and as well as very specific agencies like LEAs or county offices. And the third level of support is what we have been brainstorming about. What do we want our level 3 support to look like? We started to work closely with a couple of our local LEAs. As Christina shared with you, the percentage of English learners with disabilities in Imperial County is very high. And so it merits us really focusing our attention literally in our own backyard and to begin to have these conversations with some of our LEAs who are both in the DA and in the SIM process. And so we're working very diligently, very focused, aligning these processes, braiding them, if you will, so that our LEAs don't feel like they're doing two things that are separated, that are different. Rather than running parallel, SIM process and the DA process, we want them to see how we can help support our project and then within their multidisciplinary team be more intentional about braiding the processes and the activities that they've identified to address the same students, right? If they qualified if they are eligible to be in differentiated assistance because of their students with disabilities and they are in the SIM process, we're talking about the same students. And so we want to make sure that the conversations that are being had and the processes that are engaging in, our role as we move forward is to be of service to help braid that work. And so we're having very intentional, deliberate, focused conversations, our team is, around what this needs to look like and working specifically with starting with our local LEAs. This is just an example of one of our universal supports, our level 1 support. Vanessa's going to walk you through it more intentionally, and I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to just move right on to the next couple of slides. This is another example of our level 1 universal supports. This was a series where we took we called it kind of our lunchtime toolkit series. We provided an hour where we invited, shared out a Zoom invitation, invited everybody in the state of California to join us and to learn more about a specific resource that we created, mostly in the form of an infographic with a very specific topic. These are just some of the example topics of the resources that we shared. And we learned that this actually is was very successful because it was an hour. We focused on one resource, and people were able to take away a resource and apply it or share it very specifically rather than spend a few hours learning about several things. So we scheduled it during lunch, bring your sandwich, bring a friend, and learn about this resource. And so we feel that this was a very useful way to be able to showcase a high leverage resource and make it practical and applicable for our participants. Another type of support that we've offered this past year, we're extremely proud of this work, is our work with the regional English learner specialists. We want to thank the Multilingual Support Division at the CDE for inviting us to work closely with the regional English learner specialists and providing some support and building their capacity around topics that they have identified as areas of need related to dually identified students. And we have an invitation from that department to continue this work next year. So this year was more of a community of practice. Next year, we're hopeful to kind of merge into more of a training of trainers to equip the regional English learner specialists with tools and some content to help support their respective EL networks, bringing that dual lens into that work. So we're excited to share that with you today as well. And that work leads us into this regional multidisciplinary team approach. So not only are we encouraging our LEAs to take that approach in the work that they do locally, we practice what we preach. We really are leaning on the other agencies at the state level to really create this multidisciplinary team approach by working very closely with some of the other state agencies, with CECL, with SIP, with open access, and really bringing in our lens to the work that they are also charged to do, and vice versa. We're learning from each other, and we're very proud of that. The level 3 support, again, focusing in on not only LEAs that are in the SIM process and or the DA process, but also other LEAs that are reaching out to us to request some specific technical assistance around some key topics. For example, Oakland Unified School District reached out through the regional English learner specialist in their region for some support and conversations around reclassification. They were working on designing a resource. They wanted to review and revamp their reclassification process. And so we've had conversations with them about best practices and the recommendations as described in the California Practitioner's Guide. So that's just a brief example of some level 3 technical assistance. The county office level, reaching out to us and asking us to present on key topics. Reclass is a hot topic. That's a topic that is recurring and quite honestly, from the very, very beginning of this grant work. So we continue to have conversations around that. Los Angeles County Office of Education asked us to present on this topic to their multilingual network. So again, this is just a sample of some of the level 3 technical support that we have been providing and are planning to continue to provide moving forward in this year 2 of this grant. I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa. Well, we just have 5 minutes, I know that, to walk us through our website. And thank you again for this time.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us today. And again, as Lupita mentioned, being extremely mindful of the time, I'm going to really walk us through quite briskly through the next couple of slides. So we have launched a new website. If you were familiar with our 1.0, the web address was a different one. This is multilingual-swd.org, and it's the new version of our website. And we've really taken an opportunity to collect and just organize in a very easily accessible manner so that practitioners statewide can have access. So what you see here is the landing page for our new website. And what I want to show you briefly is some of the topics that we cover in our website in a variety of manners. So the topics that we cover are specific to dually identified students, though we know that there might be some overlap with specific student groups. So from identification of students as English learners, the multi-tiered system of support, potential identification as a student with a disability, pre-referral, referral, assessment, potential reclassification, and potential exit from special education services. We have a variety of resources in the form of either infographics, slide decks, pre-recorded modules, and the corresponding resources for teams or individuals to engage in. Again, all of our resources are fully accessible to all practitioners statewide and provide a variety of multiple entry points. So for example, whether you are a general education teacher who wants to know more about the assessment process for special education, there's an entry point for you. If you are a speech and language pathologist, there's an entry point for you. If you're an administrator who's concerned with just the must-knows of IDEA in relation to dually identified students, there's a resource for that as well. So being very responsive to the needs of our educational partners is critical to the work that we do, because we know that if we are truly going to come forward with that team lift approach, that multidisciplinary team approach, it is critical that we consider all of the lenses, all of the hands that come in to do this heavy lift and provide the appropriate resources for all of those individuals involved. So as I mentioned earlier, the multiple entry point is one of our critical building stones of our work. And we always highlight at least a couple of starting points so that we can get moving forward in our journey. So we have our frequently asked questions, which cover all of the topics previously listed in the other slide. So if you have a burning question related to any one of those topics, know that the frequently asked questions is collecting all of those answers with the citations, because sometimes I know that the question is, well, says who, right? So when there is ed code or CCR listed, some of those answers are there included as well. And then also we provide a list of student scenarios and practitioner scenarios. Sometimes when we're reading and learning, it's hard to picture what it would look like in practice. So these student scenarios and practitioner scenarios really put into a very easy to digest and follow manner what these best practices look like on a variety of topics. What does the development of a culturally and linguistically relevant IEP look like through the eyes of the multidisciplinary team and the development of this IEP for a particular student? So all of those resources are available there. And because we like to be incredibly responsive to needs of practitioners, we recognize that diversity and variability is the norm. So sometimes the resources that are available just as a PDF format, a slide deck, or a video may not be enough, and a visual guide might be necessary. We've developed quite a few visual guides, infographics with live links that will direct you to additional resources to support the work that we do, because we recognize as educators, whatever your level or sphere of influence may be, time is of the essence, and we really do need resources at our literal fingertips, and we pride ourselves in doing that as well. So one of the highlights of our time today that I really want to make sure that I spend at least a minute on are these appendices. So these appendices are part of the California Practitioner's Guide. They were included in the original publication back in 2019. And what we've done is we've taken them and we made them downloadable, savable, printable, fillable. And these are great resources because they provide some structures for practitioners to collect information, to engage in conversations, and to really develop a robust student profile that is oftentimes missing when we're having a full-on conversation regarding to what our students can do. One of the additional points that I want to make about our appendices is that we've made them available in Spanish. We have them also available in Arabic and in Vietnamese. And again, as Lupita and Christina mentioned earlier, we're working on additional languages, being responsive to the home languages spoken in the great state of California so that we can fully engage with all of our educational partners. We recognize that that is a critical part of the work that we do, and we want to be responsive for that as well. So all of those are available there. That can be downloadable. You can be also working with your team to edit them to best fit your needs. Again, fully available for you so that we can continue to connect with families, providing them access to all of these resources in the home language, because we recognize that this is a work that is continual. So we want to provide learning opportunities and not only just provide them as a one-time Zoom, live, in-person hybrid, but also archive them and make them available with all of the corresponding resources. And you'll be able to find that at our website as well. I know that I've talked very quickly, but I want to make sure that I am respectful of everybody's time, and I want to wrap it up by just opening it up for any questions that may arise, and really just to thank commissioners. Thank you so much for giving us this great time. We're incredibly proud to be here, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of the information, and appreciate the depth and the depth and breadth of all of the content, and I'll just scan to my left and see comments, and then I'll come to the right and then online.
Thank you again for this information. As I mentioned to you guys before, I think this is a wealth of information that we could all take back to our school districts, to our teams, to our parents, and be able to share this information because it's useful, and we've used it prior, and I found the most interesting, which we don't usually consider, is asking the student. Sometimes, what do they do at home? Who's your caretaker? What TV? Who do you speak to? Do you have cousins? Do you have friends? What language do you speak to them in? So I really appreciate all that information and you guys being here today. I have a question. So have you guys noticed in this, in your research or your project, the percentage of students in special ed that are classified as emergent bilingual students from like the preschool to 5th grade, if there's more students being refer to special education and qualifying who are emergent bilingual students? Or is there like because I know you talked about the whole state, but do you have a breakdown of the different grades of, is it more in certain grades or is it less in certain grades?
That is an excellent question, and we do not, but we will. I mean, I think it's important to get down to that granular level, and then if we are able to lean on the department or other agencies that can provide us with that type of information. I know that Vanessa is kind of our data guru. You know, she's a data nerd, I think is what she calls herself. But that is an excellent question. And again, if we're going to have intentional, fruitful conversations around what are actionable next steps, then it's important to have data that points us in that direction.
Thank you all for your work. This is so important, and California is one of those few states where we have such a big population that really needs the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I'm also grateful that you are already expanding on the languages that you're providing access for. So many of our families have such diverse backgrounds, and it's a great place to live, but it can be very hard when you're the one who doesn't have access to the language. And if your student is having any struggles in school, for those parents to be able to support them, to know that now they're being able to get outreach to them. I guess I'm wondering how. I wasn't familiar with the website, and I realized it sounds like you're still rolling it out in this newer version, but what is the outreach going to look like for parents and families? Is it through like the parent supporting parent type of program, or how will we get this information out? Because it sounds like a really good resource for our families.
This is where this collaboration with the other special education state agencies comes into play, working collaboratively with them, sharing the resources with each other so that they can be pushed out at a mass level, right? So working closely with ADR, which that agency is charged to directly support families, and helping us work together and share resources within the special education state agencies is an avenue to disseminate. But just like this time and space here, now that you are aware of them, maybe you can also share them out in your respective networks, within and outside of this role. So we are really leaning on each other. We really take pride in what I call our motto, this collective commitment. The intentionality of the dynamic of our team is so that we can lean on each other and cover our blind spots. And we're kind of that's how we're navigating that work within our special education statewide system of support agencies as well.
And I also want to add that the opportunity absolutely exists, especially if we consider our family empowerment centers and just the ability to connect within the statewide system of support, and recognizing that really it is about connecting with existing structures already, so that we're not necessarily having to go outside of what's already there, but really leveraging those connections and those structures that are present within our state.
Hi, thank you for your presentation, and this really personally resonated with me because I'm also, for many years of my life, I've been going as a bilingual student because I speak Mongolian, English, and now I speak Spanish because that's what it's offered in my school. But for many years, I've been going through LPAC, and LPAC is really intimidating. It's really annoying, and ELD, but having to find resources as a minority has always been a struggle, but hearing about this resource, it could really benefit so many families. Like, I did presentations for the Mongolian American Committee for students with disabilities, and if I tell them about this resource, they will be really engaged in it. And I think the next step, and something that I would suggest in this process, is let's work with our ELD department for the CDE, because ELD, we know they got a lot of work to do, and this would be a perfect opportunity for them to work in, but also other state agencies. And going back to what Christine said about how will this even get to our students and families, because what I've seen with resources it usually goes to the school districts, but never to the parents. So we need to really work with activists, but also family organizations too, like the Bay Area Deaf Association. They'll be happy to pass this down, but specific communities that work with organizations like that would really benefit working with family organizations besides state organizations, because family organizations are prone to give more resources and give these resources to families and students. And I will do my part on giving these resources to students at my school and students across California. And thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I echo a lot of what my colleagues have said here today. On the ground, the idea of or the process of reclassification can be really tricky. And so I know that my agency has used a number of these resources already. And so thank you for your work in supporting teams with that. The difference between general English language learners and dually identified students when it comes to percentage of LTELs, the difference is really stark. And I'm curious if you've seen movement in that over the last number of years. Is that percentage going up, going down, or staying about the same?
The number of long-term English learners, the percentage of long-term English learners has increased. So much so that we are focusing, our own agency and the department is focusing on that very specific subgroup on the dashboard. So to speak to dually identified students who are also long-term English learners, I feel like they're probably following that same trajectory. My theory is that there is a lack of intentionality of comprehensive ELD for dually identified students equally for our English learners. Comprehensive ELD implementation statewide. My role as a Title III specialist prior to coming into this work is why I'm sharing this information with you all today. It has been an area that we are continuously trying to support at the state level. So to answer your question, that percentage has increased, and we are trying to, again, connect very deliberately with the Multilingual Support Division. We're working very collaboratively with them, specifically through the regional English learner leads. We are collaborating with Emily Ingram in providing some insight and support on the OPTEL and the resources designed to be disseminated for a practitioner statewide. And so all of those resources point to the need to address the different types of typologies of English learners, and more specifically in our case, in our agency, dually identified students. So yes, there is a definite need, and the percentages, unfortunately, are increasing.
Checking with any commissioners online for comments. Okay, there appear to be no comments from commissioners online, and just wanted to, again, always appreciate learning so much from you. And one of the areas that jumps out for me, and Christina, you spoke to this in terms of peeling back the layers and the data that is there but isn't transparent for us at a number of levels. And so just wanted to highlight that as an opportunity. I don't know who is in charge of artificial intelligence and its impact on public education, but just knowing the manual activities that it takes to peel back the layers and understand where referrals are coming from. Are there patterns in our data around which children are reclassified and at what rate? Where are bright spots within our larger systems for our duly identified students? And so we want to highlight the continued need for systems, data systems, and the capacity for our practitioners to be able to peel back those layers, because continuous improvement only works if you have access to the data. And really want to highlight just the opportunity for us as a state. I mean, a number of multilingual learners, and I am always thoughtful of, if I'm in elementary, I'm an English language learner. If I take 4 years of Spanish, I get the seal of biliteracy. And so just the flip of, like where we prioritize in the asset and strengths-based approach that we have some of our earliest opportunities to earn the seal of biliteracy with children who are in elementary school but don't start with English. And so the continued advocacy for like the asset-based approach as it relates to our multilingual learners and especially our duly identified learners. And I'd close with just thinking of the lived experience of a parent of a student who is duly identified. Not only do I need to understand this system in special ed and the language and the acronyms and the processes and the players, I also need to understand this other system driven by the feds, implemented at a state level. And just, you know, if my children are English language learners, I suspect that I would be too, based on the home language and the barriers that might exist for parental participation. And so if that was one area that I would highlight to continue to invest in terms of development of resources and making them bilingual so that parents have access to build capacity along with educators, I would highlight that because the number of students who are reclassified as fluent of the roughly 200,000 students, like 40,000 students by rough math. And so just the opportunity that we're missing. You also touched on, you know, if I'm a long-term English learner in high school, the research that demonstrates disengagement, lack of opportunity, so on and so forth. I said lastly a minute ago, but last thing. Really appreciate the level of collaboration across the system of support. I would also highlight opportunities to collaborate outside of our special ed lead agencies. I think of the 21st Century School Leadership Academy and a potential partnership because principals have significant impact at a site level in terms of culture and areas of focus and priorities, as well as the upcoming equity leads, whose work will dovetail nicely with the work of Project MuSE. So, longtime fan, huge supporter of the work and appreciation of the opportunity that your help realizing for families who may not have English as their first language and recognizing the opportunity and economically, like take it out of K-12. Like if you're multilingual, that is an asset when you apply for jobs. And so like a resource that we have in our state with our students that we can benefit from long term. So again, thank you so much for all the time you invested in the presentation. And like, again, I don't know if you know where, like, they share where Imperial County is. Like there's not a direct flight from Imperial County to Sacramento. So our gratitude and appreciation. I would ask for any members of the public wishing to make public comment to begin lining up in the back. If we would display the slide for public comments online. We will be tracking on your work and we'll be extending invites into the future. Thank you. Okay. I see one public comment in the back.
Maybe I'm just not talking loud enough. Yeah, they turned me up. I'm Veronica Coates on behalf of the SELP Association, as well as Pathways to Partnership, the ADR resource lead. Project MuSE is infused in all of the statewide system of support. It's especially important part of our project, as they indicated all of their work with families. And we've been really trying to integrate our work with them. So they are telling the truth. They are walking the walk. We are crossing over. There's cross-pollination there. Also, I know from my colleagues at the SELP Association, and speaking just as a practitioner, I could not do my job without this project. I said that to them when they walked in the room today. And, you know, we send a ton of stuff out to districts and all of our LEAs and practitioners, families. And this is the one where everyone is like, thank you for this resource. It crosses general ed, special education, our EL specialists. Anyways, we are so thankful for them and so glad they came up here. As David said, they don't have a direct flight and they made it in person and it shows their intention and thoughtfulness of really wanting to be here.
Seeing no additional public comments in the room, we will close public comment in the room and transition.
Testing one.
That was the last public comment in the room. Transitioning to public comments online.
There are no callers at this time.
Okay, so with that, we will close this agenda item and move into our next agenda item. Thank you. Thank you so much. Someone destroyed my paperwork up here. Whoever it is, I'll find you. Okay, so now we are moving into the election of officers. I want to thank our election committee for their work. And as I am a candidate, I will yield the floor to them and excuse myself.
This being the last meeting of the 23-24 ACSE calendar, we are electing our officers for ACSE for the 24-25 calendar year. The nomination form was sent out to commissioners on May 23rd, and it consists of the following nominees. For the position of chair is David M. Toston Sr., and for the position of vice chair is Victoria Graff. Because we don't have a candidate in both positions, we can do it as a slate and do one roll call vote. So at this time, I'm seeking a motion to elect David M. Toston Sr. as chair for ACSE for the 24-25 year, and Victoria Graff as ACSE vice chair for 24-25.
So moved.
Second?
Second that motion.
We can proceed with a roll call vote.
Commissioner Estes, Commissioner Hamilton, Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Mushad,
Yes.
Commissioner Notch,
Yes.
Commissioner Oyakawa,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Snipes,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorter,
Yes.
Commissioner Topolian,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Ding, Commissioner Tuxagal.
Yes.
The motion passes, and so David Toston will be our chair for 24-25, and Victoria Graff will be our vice chair for 24-25. Congratulations. The next part of this, item number 5, is to propose new bylaw amendments to the terms of officers. And I will kind of put this back to Chair Toston.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I just want to acknowledge the Elections Committee. I appreciate the time and effort that went into facilitating the process this year. And thank you so much for moving us forward. And then secondly, thank you, everyone, for your confidence in allowing me to continue to contribute in the role of chair. It was my intent to bring forward some language to propose some amendments to the bylaws relating to the term of officers. And as I started working on it, I realized, oh, you know what? I don't know if you've ever done bylaw work, but if you change one comma in the first paragraph, there are ripples through the rest of the bylaws. And so didn't want to bring anything for us to review today. specifically around language, but wanted to highlight the opportunity for us to, one, extend the terms. I think as we've discussed before, all of us are appointed in 4-year terms, and so if you are going to be a commissioner for 8 years, that provides time to get your feet underneath you. If you choose to participate in one of the officer roles, an opportunity to go through a cycle, learn it, and then participate fully and own it the second cycle. So I see there are benefits based on my experience as a commissioner, and it would allow us to have some 2-year continuity. Some of the language that might need to be included in the bylaw revision is addressing the role of student commissioners, obviously have a vote, but just clarifying the language, may not run for office, but certainly participate in the elections. We don't have any language that deals with ties. What happens if there's a multiple applicant or multiple nominees and there's a tie? How would we go about breaking the tie? And our bylaws still reference a secret ballot vote. We actually need to do it in public because we're deliberating and making decisions. And so just aligning that language in some of those areas to make sure we've dotted all of our I's and crossed all of our T's. I also wanted to solicit, if bylaw work is your jam, if that excites you on a deep personal level and you're interested in contributing to proposing revisions to the bylaws, I'd like to solicit your assistance in a partnership to do this, for us to mark some areas to bring back to the August meeting, because outside of the elections, there's just some cleanup language that we would identify. And Director Heenan and I were kind of going through a section today, and it was oh, that's what it says? Okay, well, let's do some research and respond appropriately to our review. And so I'll scan the dais, and anyone online who would be willing to contribute to some bylaw work. I see Commissioner Wilkins. Anyone else? Okay. Commissioner Topalian. I see someone online as well.
I also just wanted to make a comment too. Just in looking at, we've been talking about extending things to 2-year cycles, and considering that some of us are appointed in odd years and even years, and considering that the appointment usually happens in December in the middle of our calendar year, it could result in possibly somebody having to leave in the middle of their serving as an officer. And so I just wanted people to be aware of that, that could possibly be a result of changing it as we consider changing the bylaws.
Great consideration. And I know, for example, my term, I believe, is up in December of 25. Yes. And so next April, if we move to 2-year terms, I would not nominate myself for that because my appointment could end midterm. And so it's a great point to how do we stagger, or that don't nominate yourself if you've got a year left, because it's a 2-year commitment. So let's see, Matthew, Janine, Saran. Anyone else online? Was that Commissioner Sorter? I think I saw. Okay. So obviously, don't want to violate Bagley-Keene, and so figure out a way, because there are different portions of the bylaw, and actually this allows us to eat the elephant in multiple bites. I'll follow up with you individually via email and ask you to take a look at some particular sections for us all to come back and look at in August. So I'll work one-on-one with each of you on particular sections, and then everyone will review it at the same time, and we won't take any action. So it's not a serial meeting. Before we move on from this portion of the conversation, any other thoughts related to our cycle of elections? The bylaws also don't require us to, and we've made this move to have multiple co-chairs to the election committee so that we always have backup. Shout out to appendicitis. And so adding that language as well in terms of, elections being a standing committee and having co-chairs for that, and just clean up around our process because I don't think we use paper ballots anymore, and e-communication, et cetera. All right. Unless there are any other comments from the dais or online, any members of the public who would like to weigh in on election process or bylaws, I'll ask the slide for public comment to also be displayed. Certain someone has been waiting to weigh in on bylaws. Seeing no members of the public in the room, we will close public comment in the room. We'll hold just for a second for any public comments online. I've been given the indication that there are no public comments online, so we will close this agenda item. And moving on in the agenda, you can see we're a little bit ahead of time. Item 6, as I alerted everyone earlier today, we won't be having that presentation today. The remaining agenda items are our study session, the Operations and Planning Committee, and then general public comment. I would suggest that we just continue our conversation and hold off on any breaks because I suspect that we'll be able to adjourn early this afternoon and give everyone some time to enjoy the beautiful Sacramento weather out there. It's a breezy 145 degrees. Okay, so moving into ACSE agenda building, and this is a very timely conversation. As evidenced today, sometimes life comes up, and our meeting attendance, while we have a number of committed commissioners online, the numbers in the room are lower than anticipated. And so we have been moving our meeting structures this year, and I haven't heard anything, but I believe the changes that we've made have allowed us to hear information, and we're moving to a structure that may work for us in terms of how we typically have presentations on day one. And so that's our information gathering through the first portion of day 2. And then we have our liaison reports, and then we close with our committee work on the second half of day 2. Starting at 10 o'clock on day 1, going to 5 o'clock, day 2 starting at 9 o'clock, and then going to roughly around 3 o'clock has been the cadence that we're in this year. With that structure, we were able to hear 10 presentations, 10 45-minute blocks of information gathering, 15-minute report outs from our state board liaison, special ed director, state special schools and liaisons. Takes us to noon on day 2. And then we have however much time we allot after lunch on day 2. Wanted to open it up and just confirm, does that structure work for everyone? Regardless of where you participate, if it's virtual or in the room, does that structure feel appropriate for us to continue to lean into for next year? Seeing some head nods around the dais. Can't see online because I'm old.
Ask a question. Yeah. Would the option always be available to come back in person the second day if we have work to do as groups or as committees or things like that?
Possibly, we haven't gotten to that.
Okay, sorry.
So before we talk about in-person, online, just that general structure, I just wanted to confirm there were no insights that warranted discussion or opinions that anyone wanted to share about just the general structure of the meeting. Okay, so with 5 meetings a year, 10 slots for presentations a meeting, it's roughly 50 presentations that we would be able to entertain and learn from, which feels like a lot of information, but very appropriate for the work that we're doing. The second part of the conversation is Janine began alluding to, is we want to, honor the intent of being in person, but recognizing the commitment that creates for 2 days. Not not just for working professionals, but many on the dais are parents, some by requirement of their appointment, parents of students with disabilities with varying levels of need. And so committing 3 days to travel in the night before, spend the days in the meeting, and then travel back is a significant commitment. And so we, side conversation without violating Bagley-Keene, wanted to entertain the idea of day one. We would focus on in-person presentations with the expectation that we would all be here in person to the greatest extent possible. And day two, we would move, like as we are this meeting, to a virtual meeting where all of us would be participating virtually. And that would mean all of our action items we would want to ideally have on day one. And day two would be planning forward in terms of agenda setting and our committee work, as well as obviously the presentations. And so day one, in person here at CDE, day two, virtual. Some of the drivers behind that, as we've experienced the past few meetings, we have great support from our team in the AV room as well as our CDE teammates in supporting the meeting, and they've demonstrated their flexibility and expertise. But some of the glitches that we have are trying to manage an in-room presentation with virtual presentation and having lots of people in different places, in which tests the capacity of Zoom as well as the infrastructure of the department. And even our capabilities to communicate. And so that's one driver. The second, or the other driver, is like just being respectful of everyone's time and ability to be at home and not have to organize one more aspect. So I'll pause there. What initial questions or thoughts does that bring up for us?
I just want to say I support the move. I think it'd be a great thing to try out, and I think it would improve everyone's expectations and then abilities to participate and not disrupt too much of their other lives. Thanks for considering
it. To clarify, so there would be an expectation for the first day that everyone is in person and that there is not a virtual option, and then going into day two, everybody is virtual and there's not an in-person option, versus both days having both options.
Ideally, that's how it would play out. We have like space for unique circumstances, but ideally here in person, so that the support that's required to produce the meeting is able to do that efficiently, and even think about the interpreters in room versus online, pinning the windows. So ideally we would participate in person, and that way we can always ensure a quorum in the room on day one. And then day two, we would not have an in-room option. I mean, I guess if the department had the room open, you could come and watch it like movie theater style. But we'd be focusing on more of an online facilitation.
It doesn't affect me, but I know we have a lot of commissioners who live in various parts of the state, and if the first day meeting is ending around 5 o'clock like it does now, would that create logistical transportation in trying to get home and then being virtual the next morning at 8 a.m.? And I don't know if that would. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So we'll go with Commissioner Snipes, and then Commissioner Notch, and then Commissioner Michaud.
That was actually right along what I was going to say. There are no flight options for where I'm coming from. So with it being a 5.5 hour drive, I'm obviously totally in for whatever the group decides as a whole. But for me, it's still going to be a multiple day trip regardless. So just keeping in mind, like I won't be driving home, but I will still be coming in the night before. And anyone else who might have those types of issues, like options that we might have, I don't even know what those would look like, but just just bringing to light that if there are others who are in the same situation where there is no flight option, just making sure that our day in person is worthwhile, that it's robust, that it's well planned, so that we're feeling like our single day together is really, really beneficial.
Agreed. Commissioner Notch?
I was going to ask a similar question to what Commissioner Wilkins brought up, and thank you, Commissioner Snipes, for that perspective. I think there's a lot of factors to consider as we're unearthing this. Just sharing as someone who for the past 2 meetings has had circumstances that kept me away because I couldn't get away for the 2 days. I think not being in a situation where I'm 2 hours away, so I can just drive home. So recognizing the privilege of that, but I think that it would have made a difference. I might have been able to get away for just 1 day and participate in person, which is always my favorite configuration. I just much prefer being in person to participating by Zoom, but grateful for the opportunity to do so in special circumstances. So just wondering if we can work out all of the other little intricacies of travel and what that might need to look like for folks who don't have as easy of a commute as I do. I think it might help, certainly for me, increase participation in difficult circumstances. So thank you for bringing it up for discussion.
I also agree too. I think for me, well, I take the train, so it's like a 2-hour commitment usually to take the train, but also for me, I have to get the day before the meeting because there's no way I'm waking up at 5 a.m. and driving. So I think that if we hypothetically do it virtual the second day, there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't be mine with that, but I'm just like, wait, would I do it in my hotel room or would I just go back home and do it? Like, it's the travel. It's a little confusing to me, but also, I think having it on Zoom the second day, it does create a lot of accessibility for everyone who lives different parts of the state. So I think that that's good to recognize too. And I guess the last thing that I would say, I have a question about, like, let's say we have special field trips or special things that we have to attend. How do we manage that with the load of information presentations we have in that first day? Because I feel like that's going to be really packed. And just think realistically.
Yeah. Great questions. And so I think just highlighting the reimbursement for travel and participation for the meeting does not change. And so if commissioners need to come in the night before and it is not convenient to drive 6 hours to get back home to participate virtually, I don't anticipate that being a problem in terms of traveling in. We could decide on day one we're starting at 10 right now. We could start at 9 on day one and try and move the end time up an hour on day one, right? And day one is the day where we would have 8 of the presentations. And so that speaks to our planning in terms of how we stack our agenda on day one and work with our partners for those presentations. I will highlight we lose some flexibility if you're reaching out to folks saying, hey, we have a 2-day meeting, here are the slots available. If they're not available on the Wednesday, and it could be available on Thursday, but that just limits us to 2 slots on Thursday that are virtual presentations. And so there's no, in my lifetime, I've not found any perfect structure for a meeting of this sort. And so recognizing that, give and takes in terms of we might lose some flexibility, but again, the certainty of which meeting we're producing on day one and day two eliminates a lot of the challenges we've experienced this year and provides the highest level of access for individuals who are joining in from the public as well as for us who are planning, who need to travel. And I'm going to be transparent. I commute in 25 minutes depending on traffic, so I want to be sensitive to those of you who have longer commutes. So are there any absolute red flags around, and again, we're piloting this tomorrow, but any red flag considerations around shifting to this structure? I'd ask you to highlight those as we move through this conversation.
It's a weird setup, not a red flag that I'm throwing in here. But I guess a question that I have is, like playing devil's advocate, like thinking about the ratio of travel time to meeting time. Do we worry that folks that are coming from, again, I have like Bay Area privilege, I got 2 hours in the car, but folks that are coming from way north or way south, it would actually disincentivize folks from those parts of the states wanting to join the committee if they feel like the travel time for just the 1 day is like not worth the 1 day a meeting, whereas for 2 days it becomes worth it. So I don't know if I'm curious to hear from folks that do live more in outskirts around that.
So if there's anyone who has like, extreme travel who'd like to weigh in terms of like what justifies that level of commitment outside of home. And again, at the end of the day, like there are some personal decisions that we need to make around the commitment of our time in this volunteer endeavor, but I want to make sure we hear the perspectives from all of us. So I see hand on the dais.
So since I travel to LA a lot, I'm just thinking of the travel time question too for those of you who go farther out. Not just is it worth it for the 1 day, but traveling afterwards for that either 3 to 6 hours or whatnot, and then having to get back on earlier in the morning the next day. Just something to consider for those of you who have to travel farther. I'm wondering how that affects you, or if it's still better for most of you who are coming from farther away.
I personally think that, everybody's circumstance is different in that sense, but having the option is always better. And given the climate the last few, years, I think that it was good because February was very tough for some of us in Southern California. So having that option, I think, was good just to be able to do virtually. Again, I'm not going to drive out here, so I was going to fly because I'm not sitting in a car for 6 hours. So I think it depends on everybody's circumstance in that sense.
And for those flying in from Southern California, and I recognize it's not the case for everyone, it is, again, it is possible. It does require a dark o'clock flight to fly in the morning of and fly out the evening of. But again, that might not be reasonable or like comfortable for everyone to wake up at 4:30 to navigate LAX. And again, the option does still remain to fly in the evening before. But knowing, and if again, we can start earlier on day one, which moves up the end time, which getting home at 7 versus 5, and even for those who are driving to the Bay Area, like if we're out at 4, it provides the opportunity to potentially not sit in gridlock.
I'm just wondering about the commissioners who decide to stay the Wednesday night. Then if we're not going to go all day, if we're going to go half day, where would they end up having, let's say, the virtual meeting? Because it has to be, also that's an issue. Would they be able to come in this room? Would they be able to do it? Because they won't have a hotel room because you have to check out by noon or 11. So this room would be probably available. So I think that would be.
Yeah, and just like thinking through that possibility, then if I am in my hotel room until lunch and then I come over here, then we're back to hosting dual meetings, which creates some of the access issues. And really want to honor our teammates who are responsible for the production of the meeting. Switching mid-meeting on the same day, I suspect would create some tech challenges. So a number of the, I'm sorry.
Sorry, question on that. Would there need to be the whole setup, or like I think you're just envisioning like just a place to take the Zoom with my headphones in? Like, is that a possibility, or? Yeah. Not necessarily doing like the whole thing, but just a small conference room.
Can we just do like a small area, like people right down? One of those rooms right here. Yeah, we have a conference room. Technically, this room is reserved, right? So they come and sit here, but without having all the lights and everything. A smaller room, I think, would be.
So, this plan works. If all of the stars align. And so we are, again, to be clear, tomorrow will be virtual for all of us. And so between now and the August meeting, we'll work with Director Heenan and ferret out any of the details around those possibilities. But if it's okay with everyone, we'll plan the August meeting with this structure in mind. And then at the August meeting, we can make a decision about subsequent meetings for the 24-25 school year. So for the next meeting, day one, for in person in the room, we will go through the structure, have our presentations. Day two would be a virtual meeting where we would all join virtually, whether hotel room, conference room at CDE, or wherever you log into Wi-Fi most frequently. All on the same page? All good? Mm-hmm. Okay. The other aspect of agenda building, it dawned on us as this last planning meeting. And typically, we have agenda building each meeting, and we say, like to hear about X, love to hear about X, and we go kind of meeting by meeting. There's nothing that prevents us from planning out the majority of the year. Like, it just dawned on me right now. And so I will be following up with a worksheet to commissioners. It'll be available to the public as well. Because again, we have all the slots. And so if mental health wanted to invite someone to present on a topic, we could slot in, 10 o'clock, day one, mental health presentation. Kind of crowdsource some of the details. I think that might make us a little bit more efficient, and then we can all see how the meeting is shaping up for the year. For example, the February meeting, the October meeting, I can guarantee we're going to hear around APR, the first part of APR. The February meeting is going to be the second part of APR. The April meeting, we need to set time aside for the election committee. There's a Bagley-Keene presentation that happens at some point in the year. And so we can begin calendaring those meetings and sketching them out, or those presentations collectively well in advance. Some of the challenge with the June meeting, when all of the graduations, but for example, we wanted to invite the community schools to share information and updates. They are in the middle of their big conference of the year down in LA over the next 2 days. And so knowing that, we could have backed up. I mean, there were still conflicts, but if we can maybe forecast our year and fill in 50 to 60% of our plans based on committee work and levels of interest and availability, I think that will allow us to have certainly our teammates who are responsible for the production of the meeting. It would ease some of the burden of trying to get 12 presenters all coordinated for one meeting in a month. And so going into agenda building conversation, would love to hear any suggestions for our next meeting in August, but also know that we'll be planning for the full year when we follow up, so that you as committee chairs can begin slotting in particular presentations that we'd like to hear from. Yeah.
Commissioner Sorter?
Yeah, just to kind of build on that, I was thinking making sure as we plan for the year, if we want to look at kind of the disability themes of the year. So for example, in October, when there's a big focus on employment, having TPP or workability, right? So it kind of aligns with awareness that's happening across the nation, and then making sure that our priorities, such as literacy, we're having presentations and different things throughout the year with those focus too.
Agreed. Thank you. Any other comments? And so moving into next year, I think it might warrant some deliberation around committee chairs. Like, we have our 5 priorities. Does each priority warrant committee chairs to be thoughtful around the presentations we hear and, again, tracking on the work. We have that luxury with mental health. Having commissioners who are focused on a particular topic and coordinating and being attuned, I think could provide some benefit for us, because I know I'm not able to track on all 5 priority areas and get close enough to understand, okay, here's how this puzzle piece fits here, and here's the newest development. And so let's consider going into next year, we will be making chair assignments for the committees, creating those ad hoc priority committee areas for commissioners to focus in on. And then again, this work is done best when it's shared. And so now that we have some of the infrastructure pieces built out, being able to kind of crowdsource how we approach the agenda. And so if there's an area of particular interest for you, please feel free to shoot me an email and let me know, and we won't make any appointments until the August meeting, but it's good to know areas of potential interest. And I'll reserve, per bylaws, the opportunity to still ask you to do something else in addition to those areas of preferred interest and or expertise, because I think next year and the next 2 years are going to be shaping up to be, there'll be lots of conversations for us to track for a number of different reasons. All right. The other item I just wanted to put on our radar in terms of a goal for us next year, our liaison work. A number of us have statewide agencies that we're connected to and liaisoning with. That's not written down anywhere. And so short of going back through the meeting transcripts, we're relying on everyone's memory to do that. And so I'd highlight that as a goal for us next year, and to continue to build out our infrastructure and how we memorialize different aspects of our work and leave, a legacy of structure after our terms are done on the commission that can be built upon and evolve. Because some of the experiences I think Janine and I have had is during our appointments, everything works perfectly, and when someone transitions out, it's a complete reset of, okay, what happens next, who's on first, and so just making it easy on all of us, and again, the teammates who are supporting the work as there's turnover within the department, having those documents and structures in place so that there's no dips in the meeting. All right, so I'll close operations and planning with the request for potential agenda items for the August meeting. I would highlight community schools, as well as, given the Goal Award recipients today, would it be beneficial for us to learn more about dual enrollment and potentially CTE programs? Other thoughts, ideas?
Will we be asking non-public school study to come for August?
If it is, if there were 2 reports we were tracking, the IEP template work as well as the non-public schools. And so if their work is reached its completion and publishable, we will have those on the list too. We had previously talked about using the August meeting for our Capitol visit. If we want to follow through on that, I might suspect that be the afternoon of day 1 if we're going to be here in person. And so that would leave us with roughly about 2 slots for presentations at the top of day 2. If you want to suggest that, feel free. One comment that I made earlier was, and I believe the name has changed, Department of Rehab.
Disability Works California.
Disability Works California.
And it would be interesting to hear about their Employment First initiatives. and how that's resonating throughout the state, and the interconnectivity with school district, with education in general, post-secondary as well as K-12.
Thank you.
What is it? I think, was it in October where we had an update about ELD information for the school year?
Yes, was that the change in the assessment?
I think so. Maybe because usually in the beginning of the school year, that's when departments have goals for the school year. I think that would be a great opportunity for August or maybe October to talk about the ELD goals for California and for what schools expect.
Kind of along that vein, I'm also wondering if there's data we can be getting from state testing from the end of this school year, and have a presentation on that.
That data typically isn't globally available until closer to December, end of November, dashboard publishing. But if there's available data, then we'll work with the department.
It may be worth having DDS come. A couple of years ago in the Budget Act, they created IDA specialists in all of the regional centers as well as one at headquarters. And just seeing how that's being rolled out, it may be good to have that along with Disability Works California, because they're both Health and Human Services agency departments within the agency. And just seeing how that translates, especially as people transition out of K-12 education into the rest of their adult life.
So before I come to you, Commissioner Oyakawa, just any commissioners online, we're going to wrap this conversation up soon. So if you have a contribution, please raise your hand and we'll get to you.
I'm not sure when, time-wise, which meeting would be good, but I'm wondering, I can't remember when we had the ADR presentation, and I guess I'd like to get an update and just to hear if we can, what has changed, if how have these ADR initiatives changed the landscape for families and schools? And in light of some of the public comment we've had recently, has litigation, is it really increased, or is it a handful that we're hearing about? I guess I'm curious to see, what is working and what still needs improvement.
Oh, I guess one last thing is YLF, because over the summer, YLF's having their youth retreat, I think, program. So I think that they did an update in October last year about how it went. So in YLF about this summer in October, maybe.
Yes, that was Matthew who came and presented to us. Note to self, get out to the summer camp. Okay, given that we have about a lot of suggestions, unless there's anything online from commissioners that want to be in the queue. Right. Heather, Commissioner Snipes?
I think that I don't have any specific presenters, but I think that for us, it's important for us to elevate student voice and voices of experience whenever possible. So making sure that we're hearing directly from the people that we're making decisions about. I'd love to prioritize that for the coming year and forever, but for our coming year, anytime it's possible, hearing directly from student groups or disability advocacy groups, I feel like our student commissioners could be really helpful in identifying some of those voices.
Thank you. And as we dig into the bylaws, I would highlight we have obviously our regular meetings, but then we can host what are called, scrolling now, input sessions. Input sessions from the field and the public may be scheduled as deemed advisable by the commission, where we just listen on particular topics. And so as we kind of get our foundation set in terms of here are the regular meetings we need to do our work, are there opportunities for us to spend some time just focus on input sessions, because I think what we've experienced this year is if you have 45 minutes and one presentation, you've heard one presentation, and getting the word out and leveraging our partnerships with the FECs might create an opportunity for us to have a structured opportunity for listening around a particular topic. So we will put that on the potential to-do list, and we will crawl before we fly in terms of meetings, but certainly something we want to continue to honor. Thank you, Commissioner Snipes, for highlighting that. All right, so with that, one last detail, and we'll have time tomorrow to focus on the ACSE Recognition Awards. Today was the last Grazer Award from the Commission. We've exhausted those funds with our 2 recipients this morning. We are thrilled that we have a partner in the State SOPA Association who is willing to partner with us and to already partnering, and they're willing to continue to support what that looks like. Given that we're moving away from the Grazer Award that was donated by the Grazer family, we need to come up with a new structure, not structure in terms of the application, but what do we want to recognize? And while we have our 5 priority areas, if everything worked, or if we were able to be impactful and address every issue in all of those 5 priority areas, the outcome would be what? What is the universal goal that we want to highlight and impact with the recipients of the award? And so we want to maybe generate a list of ideas and themes that we could, in concert with our partner for this recognition, identify a theme or a purpose that resonates and is aligned with our shared vision for the work that happens with students with disabilities and programs we want to highlight. So I assign that to everyone for homework this evening for our conversation tomorrow around the ACSE Recognition Awards. I will scan the dais and online if there are any other topics for our work study session from any of the committees. Seeing none. We are in the process of developing the annual report for next year. We've made some changes to the structure and want to thank Chris and Mary for their just great work, where we are able to highlight conversations we've had this year, organize it around our priority areas and uplift our goal recipients, as well as communicate areas that we want to highlight in our advisement in our official document for the year. And so over the coming months, I may reach out to you if you're a committee chair for mental health, we may want to reach out and get just eyes on the document or solicit input. This year, we're not asking anyone to contribute in terms of writing an article or writing a section. Full transparency, that's really hard to coordinate and do, and myself included, we miss a lot of deadlines. That puts a lot of pressure on our teammates who are publishing this on our behalf. And so we have made some decisions about the structure, but obviously we'll solicit input where appropriate on the annual report that we hope to publish in the same timeline as previous years that kind of honors all the work that we've done this year. So with that, I will close unless there are any commissioner comments and ask for any members of the public wishing to make comment about our work session here, committee conversation. Please line up and please display the slide online. And you can keep the slide online because we'll just roll into the last public comment after this. Seeing no members of the public in the room wishing to make public comment, we will close public comment in the room. We'll hold for a second online. It appears public comment is feast or famine. There are no public comments online for the previous agenda item. I will move into general public comment prior to adjourning our meeting for the day. If there are any members of the public in the room wishing to make comment, feel free to line up. And any members of the public calling in, please begin doing so now. Seeing no members of the public in the room wishing to make public comment, we will close public comment in the room. We'll hold one more second for individuals calling in online. We're having technical difficulties, so we will just hold until they're resolved so that we honor anyone wishing to make comment.
Caller ending in 7407. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Speaker, you will have exactly 1 minute. Your time starts now.
This is Judy McKinley calling. A couple of meetings ago, Dr. Heenan had expressed the need possibly for an office where parents can go get support when they're having issues with their school districts. I was just wondering what the status of that is. I think you are seeing very few of the parents who are actually having issues, and this office, I think, could be very beneficial in regards to families seeking to get advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no additional public comments online, so with that, I will close public comment. And before we move into adjournment, I just want to thank everyone for their input and flexibility today. I always want to acknowledge our teammates who are responsible for the production of the meeting and troubleshooting as things go up, as well as our interpreters who ensure that we're able to communicate to the greatest extent possible. Just one more reminder, we are holding the meeting virtually tomorrow. Commissioners, you will receive a link for us to be a part of the panel, and members of the public will utilize the link that is posted online. With that, thank you, everyone. Travel safely. We will see you online tomorrow.